Chapter 12:13. A few days later, Yu finally gave up on healing Lu Haotsong's soul and mind. After a few days of hard work, there was no progress at all. With his current level of life force, it had no effect on Lu Haotsong's soul at all. Although Lu Haotsong's soul wasn't a sage. How bad could the soul of an imperishable sage be? Especially the mind, it couldn't be seen or touched, and it couldn't be healed. And if he wanted to recover, he could only rely on Lu Haotsong to slowly repair it himself. But it might take a very long time. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion. Lu Haotsong sighed and prepared to go into seclusion to repair his soul. However, he didn't feel sorry. Although he entered the holy world with Yu, he didn't expect to be able to leave as soon as he came. After all, he would be discovered by the ancestor of the Blood Rain Mountain as soon as he appeared, and then he would be hunted down endlessly. He also wanted to stay in the Hichu Luoshu world. Now that he was here to repair his soul, he just didn't want to leave the Hichu Luoshu. It wasn't a big deal. Don't be in a hurry to go into seclusion. Yu immediately stopped Lu Haotsong. What a joke. He still needed Lu Haotsong to lead him out of the chaotic secret plane. Moreover, he also needed to understand the background of the holy world. Otherwise, he wouldn't even know when he would die if he just rashly wandered around the holy world. Then let's leave here quickly. I need to go into seclusion to repair my soul as soon as possible. Lu Haotsong was a little anxious. After all, he injured his soul, and if there were any sequelae, it would be fatal. Yu nodded and immediately left the Hichu Luoshu. According to Lu Haotsong's guidance, he flew toward the exit of the chaotic secret plane. Of course, he was flying invisibly. Otherwise, if he swaggered through the void, he would definitely be courting death. We came to the exit. Yu was depressed. There were many people at the exit, including saints in the imperishable realm. This was not a big deal to Yu. As long as he hid himself and was careful, they should not be able to discover him. However, the exit was a teleportation array. Once he stepped into the teleportation array, he would definitely cause the teleportation array to fluctuate. At that time, those people would know that someone was secretly using the teleportation array. At that time, as long as any one of them casually slapped down, Yu would be dead. As long as a teleportation array was used for teleportation, there would definitely be energy fluctuations. Because of this, Yu stopped not far from the transmission formation and stared at it from afar, thinking about how to leave this place. However, the transmission array was firmly enveloped by the divine senses of the powerhouses of Blood Rain Mountain, so he had no chance to rush in. Old Lu, what's the situation in the Saints' world? Tell me the general situation. In the end, you could only helplessly enter the Hichu Luoshu. The Saints' world is extremely large. It can be described as boundless. Even if there were 1,000,000,000,000 divine worlds, they would not be as big as the holy world. And after countless years, there are many saints in the Saints' world. Because if you don't die in battle or in an accident, once you reach the undying realm, you are practically immortal. Lu Haotsong muttered to himself for a moment, then slowly said, in the Saints' world, it could be said that there was only one big family. The Saints race were the natives of the Saints' world. They were spread across the vast majority of the Saints' world. Apart from them, there were also the human race and demon race that ascended from the divine world. The human race and demon race also occupied a part of the Saints' world. However, compared to the Saints' race, they were only the tip of the iceberg. They were located in the most remote corner of the Saints' world. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were struggling at death's door. The human race was like a giant country that was jointly ruled by an alliance. The highest rulers of this alliance seemed to be the few supremes of the human race. However, supreme being level experts generally wouldn't care about such things. Moreover, it was said that there were not many supremes of the human race. After all, there were at most 10 supremes in the entire Saints' world. At the peak of the human race, there were not more than 3 supremes. It was also because of the existence of these supremes that the Saints' world could live in peace on the surface. There were no large-scale wars. Otherwise, Even if the human race and demon race joined forces, they would not be Shenzhen's opponent. Under the alliance of the human race, there were many countries of different sizes. The kings of these countries were generally primal chaos ancestor level existences. Only those who reached the primal chaos ancestor level could establish a country. Usually, these countries were called saints' empires. The kings of these saints' empires were also called holy lords. The saints' empires were extremely large. The smallest saints' empires were 10 times the size of the divine world. The largest saints' empires were even more boundless. Of course, the size of a saint's empires depended on the strength of the holy lord and the number of experts in the saints' empires. The stronger the holy lord, the stronger the saints' empires. This was because they could establish a bigger country. In the saints' empires, the people of every city were appointed by the saints' empires. They were the ministers of the saints' empires and had a salary from the saints' empires. Murong, you frowned slightly. According to what you said, there shouldn't be any forces or sects in the saints' world. What's the situation with Blood Rain Mountain? Lu Haotsong shook his head and continued. Listen to me first. In the saints' world, every saint's empires are made up of countless states, counties, and prefectures. Among them, the state is the largest and has many counties under it. Prefectures are the smallest administrative divisions in the saints' empires. Every prefecture is made up of many cities. In the saints' empires, almost all the cities belong to the saints' empires. But there are some exceptions. For example, some forces have their own cities. Although these cities are in the saints' empires, the ownership does not belong to the saints' empires. And for existences like Blood Rain Mountain, they don't have their own cities and only live in Blood Rain Mountain. They are the citizens of the saints' empires, but not their subjects. But because they live in the saints' empire's territory, they must pay a certain amount of taxes to the saints' empires. And if the saints' empires give orders, they must carry it out unconditionally. Otherwise, they will be attacked by the saints' army. Lu Haotsong didn't say it very clearly, but Murong Yu still understood it clearly. For forces like Blood Rain Mountain, although they are not part of the saints' empires, they are still citizens of the saints' empires. They must pay taxes and carry out the saints' orders. It's that simple. So, in the saints' world, if you want to survive and obtain a good cultivation environment, then the best way is to join the saints' empires. Because in the saints' empires, the saints' personnel are the most powerful. Next is to join a force. The stronger the force, the more powerful it is. Among them, rogue cultivators are the most miserable, because they basically don't have any cultivation resources. Murong nodded. The saints' world is actually not much different from the saints' world. It's just that there is an additional saints' empires. It's like the secular world's imperial court and the martial arts sections. However, the saints' empire's deterrence is much stronger than the secular world's imperial court, because the secular world's imperial court can't do anything to the martial arts sections. Want to join a force? Murong laughed. He suddenly thought that since he entered the world of cultivation, if he didn't join a sect, that sect would eventually be destroyed. It's the same even in the God's world. If I join a saint's empire, then will that saint's empire eventually be destroyed? Murong thought in his heart and couldn't help but laugh. Forget it. There are too many things in the saints' world. I won't be able to talk about it for a few years. I'll send some of my memories directly to you. Lu Haotsong thought about it and directly sent his memories into Murong Yu's mind. Since he can't leave the primal chaos secret plane, Murong Yu simply digested these memories. Profound sage, ancient sage, sage king, ancestor sage, and then primal chaos ancestor sage. If you want to establish a country, you must have the strength of a primal chaos ancestor sage. Otherwise, no one will recognize it, and they won't have the ability to protect a newly established country. Primal chaos ancestor sage is already the strongest existence under the Supremes. It seems that it's impossible for me to establish a country in the saints' world. Then I'll establish Shenzhen first. Murong Yu thought in his heart. Establishing a country requires the primal chaos ancestor sage realm, but establishing a sect is not necessary. In fact, even a sage can establish a sect. But if you're too weak, it's useless even if you establish a sect. Moreover, you'll be destroyed by other forces. Even in the human world, it's very cruel. After all, this is a world where the strong preys on the weak. Strength is the truth. As Murong Yu continued to digest Lu Haozong's memories, he became more and more shocked. He wasn't shocked by how many memories Lu Haozong had. As an imperishable sage, Lu Haozong has only been to the tip of the iceberg of the saint's world. This shows how big the saint's world is. This didn't shock Murong Yu, but he was shocked by the strength of the sacred race. Whether it's in terms of numbers or peak experts, the sacred race has more experts than the human and demon races combined. They're much stronger than them. If the sacred race wants to destroy the human and demon races, it should be possible. But just like what Lu Haozong said, it's because there's a supreme supporting them. If the human or demon race's supreme falls, the human and demon races might be wiped out by the sacred race. The human race is still too weak. Murong Yu thought in his heart. Although the human race of the saint's world wants to destroy the god world, they're still humans after all. They're from the same race as Murong Yu, people in the same boat. Alright, Hichu, who do you think killed Ward God Zhaoyan? Murong Yu suddenly thought of this question and asked. Murong Yu has asked this question many times, but Hichu has always avoided answering. You're too weak. The time isn't right. As expected, Hichu answered. Could it be a supreme, or even a ruler? Murong Yu rolled his eyes. Avenging Zhao Yun has become a knot in his heart. The sacred race doesn't only consist of the human race, but also the dragon race, phoenix race, and many other races. Dragon race and phoenix race? Murong Yu's eyes suddenly flashed. Chapter 12:14. Dragon Race and Phoenix Race. Murong Yu has never seen the Phoenix Race in person, but Zhao Jiqing has the bloodline of the Phoenix Race, which is one of the supreme sacred beasts. The same goes for the Dragon Race. In a mortal world, he has heard of the Dragon Race and Phoenix Race. It's just that the versions that have been circulating describe the Dragon Race and Phoenix Race as divine beasts. But in the divine world, there is no such thing as the Dragon Race and Phoenix Race. If Murong Yu hadn't seen the Dragon Race and Phoenix Race, he would have even doubted the existence of these races in the world. It turns out that these are all sacred beasts, one of the natives of the sacred world. In addition to the Phoenix Race and Dragon Race, there are many other sacred beast races. They are all part of the sacred race. In other words, the sacred race is just a general race. The sacred race can also be subdivided into the human race, the general demon race, the dragon race, the phoenix race, and so on. I wonder what the dragon-shaped key has to do with the dragon race. Could it be the key to open a secret place of the dragon group? Murong Yu thought of the dragon-shaped keys again. Just as Murong Yu was thinking, he suddenly caught a glimpse of several figures flying over from afar, heading towards the teleportation array. These people are leaving the chaos secret place. With a thought, Murong Yu controlled the He-Tu and the Book of the Luo, which had already turned into particles, and charged out. Because those people flew over from afar. When Murong Yu controlled He-Chu Luoshu to appear in the void, those people just happened to bump into them. Then, under Murong Yu's control, He-Chu Luoshu cleverly stuck to one of the sacred beasts without leaving a trace. You want to leave the chaos secret place? The powerhouses guarding the teleportation array didn't immediately let them go after seeing them, but instead, they interrogated them. They even began to examine the souls of these people. Maybe they were afraid that Lu Haozong and the others would turn into their disciples and steal this place. In fact, they also felt that all of this was too careful. After all, Lu Haozong had killed so many of their people that his soul was covered in the power of the blood curse. They could sense it before he even got close. As for Murong Yu, who was at the level of false saint, they didn't take him seriously at all. After the investigation, the sages activated the transmission array and returned to the Blood Rain Mountain. Naturally, Murong Yu, who was attached to one of the sages, also left the chaotic secret plane. In the next period of time, should we go to the Blood Rain Mountain's treasury or leave the Blood Rain Mountain? After leaving the teleportation formation, Murong-Yu left the body of the disciple of the Saint of Blood Rain Mountain and floated between heaven and earth. Although I've successfully condensed the divine body, my cultivation hasn't stabilized yet. If my body is destroyed, I may fall to the divine body realm at any time. Moreover, the restrictions and formations of the Saint's world were far too powerful. Even if I can disregard the formations and restrictions, who knows if I can really travel back and forth between these formations and restrictions? Let's find a place to settle down first. After stabilizing my cultivation, I'll decide what to do next. Murong-Yu pondered for a moment and finally left the Blood Rain Mountain. The Blood Rain Mountain was within the Holy World's human race's 9 holy empires' southern paradise. Not far from the Blood Rain Mountain was a city, White Sun City. White Sun City was an ordinary city within the southern paradise. According to Lu Haotsong's memories, the strongest city lord in this city was only at the Undying Realm. The Southern Paradise City Lord was also the Southern Paradise's Manor Lord, an ancient sage expert. The County City Lord was even stronger, reaching the Sage King realm. Therefore, an Undying Realm City Lord was only considered an ordinary city lord in the Holy Fruit. The city was definitely not big. At least, that was what Lu Haotsong thought in his memories. However, when Murong-Yu arrived outside the White Sun City, he felt depressed. The White Sun City was indeed not big, but it wasn't small either. It was at least 1,000 times bigger than the biggest city in the divine world. Looking from afar, the White Sun City was much bigger than the Holy World Shenzhen. Looks like I can't look at the Holy World the same way I look at the divine world. Otherwise, I'll misunderstand, Murong-Yu muttered in his heart, then quickly flew towards the White Sun City. When he arrived at the city gate, Murong-Yu obediently landed, because there was a large group of people in front of him waiting to enter the city. Moreover, they seemed to have to pay an entrance tax. Murong-Yu's expression changed slightly. He was poor. He couldn't even take out a few Saint crystals. How could he pay the entrance tax? Moreover, these sages seemed to have an identity token. It was equivalent to their identity cards. Come out. When Murong-Yu's expression changed, one of the guards suddenly pointed at him and shouted. Murong-Yu narrowed his eyes slightly. After thinking about it, he still walked out. You just condensed a sage physique? Murong-Yu's aura was still unstable. One moment, she was in the sage realm, and the next moment, she was in the false sage realm. Therefore, others could tell her cultivation realm at a glance. Murong-Yu nodded and replied, You don't have an identity card? The sage soldier looked at Murong-Yu sharply. Murong-Yu immediately asked, Yes, sir, I was originally in a small village. It wasn't easy for me to break through to the sage realm, so I wanted to find a job in the city. In the Holy World, other than the cities and various sects, there were many other places with sages. In fact, the Holy World was like the secular world. There were also small villages and the like. Moreover, not everyone in the Holy World was a sage. There were false sages, and there were even people below the false sage realm. After all, not everyone would be a saint once they were born. Are you here to join the army, or just to stay in the city? The soldier asked again. Sir, I want to stay in the White Sun City temporarily. After my cultivation realm stabilizes, I will join the army. Murong-Yu pretended to be respectful and replied. The Holy Empire was very welcoming to these people who came from small villages and towns. It was fine to stay in the city or join the army. Kid, I think you're cut out for the army. How about joining the army? After joining the army, you will become a member of the Holy Empire of Nine, and you will also be able to receive consecrations. If you stay in the city, you'll have to pay taxes. The soldier slapped Murong-Yu's shoulder, causing Murong-Yu to grimace. Sir, I also want to join the army. But didn't I just break through to the sage realm? My cultivation realm is still unstable, and if I join the army, I won't have much time to consolidate my cultivation. I don't want my cultivation to fall to the false sage realm. In that case, you can go in first. After you go in, report to the city lord's mansion. Remember, don't try to get away with it. Once you are found out, you will die without a doubt. The soldier warned, and then let Murong-Yu enter the city. In the city, low-altitude flying was allowed. Therefore, after Muronyu entered the city, he soared into the sky and flew towards the city lord of the White Sun City. If he wanted to stay in the city, he had to get an identity from the Holy Empire of Nine. You can have a room in the city, but you have to pay enough taxes for 100 years. You can choose to plant the Saint Valley or breed animals. You can also go outside the city to hunt for the Saint cores of demonic beasts and vicious beasts. Because you're new here, you don't have to pay taxes immediately, and you can delay it for 50 years. Which method do you choose now? In the City Lord's mansion, an official asked Muronyu in a deep voice. I choose to hunt for the Saint cores of demonic beasts. Muronyu said without hesitation. Are you sure you want to hunt for the Saint cores of demonic beasts? Those are the Saint cores of demonic beasts that are at least of the Sage realm. The official said with a frown. In the Holy World, demonic beasts or vicious beasts of the same cultivation realm were far stronger than cultivators of the same cultivation realm. Moreover, the official didn't think that Muronyu could consolidate his cultivation within 50 years. Moreover, even if he consolidated his cultivation realm, would he be able to hunt for the Saint cores of demonic beasts? If he couldn't hunt for the Saint cores of demonic beasts within the time limit, Muronyu would be captured and forced to work as a slave. He would only be able to regain his freedom after earning enough taxes. Normally, people like Muronyu would choose to plant, because planting would give him more time, and as long as he took good care of it, there would definitely be a harvest. Yes, I'm sure, Muronyu said resolutely. What a joke, asking him to plant or breed animals. Wouldn't that be a waste of his time? Immediately, Muronyu received his identity card from the Holy Kingdom of Nine and went to an independent house in the city. Although the house wasn't big, it wouldn't be a problem for a few hundred people to live in it. Moreover, there was a guarantee of safety. After all, this was the property of the Holy Kingdom of Nine. After returning home, Muronyu entered the Hichu Luoshu world. The energy of heaven and earth in the Holy World was denser than in the Hichu Luoshu world. Ever since Muronyu condensed his saint body, the Hichu Luoshu world was gradually transforming into the Holy World. A small amount of energy of heaven and earth had already appeared in the Holy World. However, Muronyu wasn't cultivating now. He was just consolidating his cultivation. What could be faster than accelerating time to consolidate one's cultivation? He directly ignited his chaotic saint veins, activated time acceleration, and began consolidating his cultivation. In fact, Muronyu hadn't reached the saint realm yet. He had only condensed his saint body. In other words, his body and soul had already reached the saint realm, but he was still lacking in cultivation. However, this was also what made Muronyu depressed, because he hadn't broken through to the 7th level of the chaotic celestial record. However, from another point of view, he had already stepped into the saint realm. After all, his soul had already become a saint realm. If he only cultivated his soul, he would also be a saint. However, what made him pleasantly surprised was that after he entered the holy world, he could comprehend the 7th level of the chaotic celestial record. As long as he had time, breaking through to the 7th level wouldn't be a problem at all. Half a day later in the real world, Muronyu came out of the Hichu Luoshu world. At this time, he had completely consolidated his body and cultivation. However, he now seemed to have returned to the false saint realm. However, his body vaguely emitted an extremely powerful aura, which was clearly extremely explosive. Chapter 12:15. It's time to hunt monsters. After consolidating his physical body, Muronyu left his residence and came to the city gate. He was going to leave the city to hunt monsters or fierce beasts in the wild. Hey, you're leaving White Sun City? The soldiers standing guard at the door were still the same ones he saw before. At this time, the soldier who interrogated Muronyu before asked in surprise after seeing Muronyu. He was surprised that Muronyu was leaving after less than a day in the city. Most people would not leave in a short period of time. Moreover, what shocked him the most was that Muronyu's originally chaotic aura had stabilized. Boy, your realm fell? Another soldier also walked over and looked at Murong-yu in surprise. Murong-yu's face darkened. This is what happens when one's realm is unstable. The two soldiers immediately looked at Murong-yu with sympathy. They had encountered this kind of thing occasionally. They were all rogue cultivators who had no resources. Even after breaking through, if they did not immediately stabilize their cultivation, it was easy to fall. Brother, why aren't you improving your cultivation in the city and planting the sacred valley and the like? Although your realm has fallen, you can still improve it if you seize the time to cultivate. If you don't have resources, I can lend you a few Saint Crystals. The first soldier who interrogated Murong-yu took out a few Saint Crystals and was about to hand them to Murong-yu. Murong-yu was stunned, and then a touch of gratitude appeared on his face. How can I accept this? It's not easy for you guys. Truth be told, Murong-yu wasn't someone who would be moved so easily. He wasn't a greenhorn. However, he did not show anything strange. These two ordinary soldiers were not deliberately trying to get close to him. In other words, the two of them really cared about Murong-yu. They were really good people. In fact, Murong-yu also saw their white light without the slightest bit of black light. They were really good people. However, one must always be on guard against others. Murong-yu wouldn't trust them so easily. Even if he could read their minds, he could only vaguely sense what they were thinking. After all, their cultivation levels were higher than Murong-yu's, and they were more powerful. Brother, just take it that I'm making a friend with you. You have to believe in your brother. I'm a very good judge of character. I believe that you will soar to the sky in the end. As he spoke, Fu Tian stuffed 5 Saint Crystals into Murong-yu's hand. Beside him, Su Guang looked at Fu Tian speechlessly and said with a smile, Fu Tian, we have been soldiers here for countless years. Even if you don't have 100,000 people in your eyes, you have at least 80,000, right? Why haven't I seen anyone soar into the sky? Fu Tian's face turned red. You don't say. From the first time I saw this, brother. My name is Murong-yu. Murong-yu quickly said. Fu Tian nodded and patted Murong-yu's shoulder. From the first time I saw Brother Murong-yu, I felt that he was not an ordinary person. I believe that he will definitely soar to the sky. Su Guang's face darkened. He had heard Fu Tian say this many times. According to his understanding, Fu Tian was a hypocritical good person. With their position, they could earn a lot of money. However, Fu Tian's resources were barely enough for his own cultivation. This was because he had to help others. All right, I accept Big Brother Fu Tian's kind words. If I can soar to the sky in the future, I will definitely not forget your kindness. Murong-yu said with a serious expression. Then he took the Saint Crystals from Fu Tian and was about to leave the city gate. However, he was stopped by Fu Tian. Why are you not cultivating? What are you going to do? It's getting dark, and the wilderness is very dangerous. When it's dark, demonic beasts will run rampant. I'm going to hunt some demonic beasts for their Saint cores, Murong-yu said bluntly. However, his words gave Fu Tian and Yi Fu Tian a fright. As for Fu Tian, he grabbed Murong-yu's shoulder and anxiously said, Murong-yu, it's not that I'm looking down on you, but how are you going to hunt demonic beasts with your current strength? You need demonic beasts that are at least level 1 saints, and you need 100 of them. I'm afraid you can't even kill one demonic beast. Su Guang also frowned and said, Why did you choose this? If you plant Saint Valley in the city, your safety will increase greatly. Those are not suitable for me. Moreover, I'm just going to give it a try. If it doesn't work, I'll come back immediately. Both of you, I appreciate your kindness, but I must go. After saying that, he broke free from Fu Tian's hand and left. Fu Tian wanted to say something, but Su Guang stopped him. Forget it. It's good to let him hit a wall. He can come to White Sun City alone, so he must be quite capable. However, Fu Tian only shook his head and sighed. What Fu Tian and Su Guang didn't expect was that their kindness today would allow them to soar into the sky in the future and enter a realm that they never dared to imagine. Of course, this was a story for later. After Murong-yu left White Sun City, he went straight ahead. On the way, he even spread his angel's wings. At this time, the angel's wings and Murong-yu's soul mutation had undergone some changes. In the beginning, the angel's wings were white and flawless, like an angel's. Later, after his soul mutation, the angel's wings also became hell's ice flames, completely composed of hell's ice flames. However, now it was gradually turning black, like the power of chaos. However, it was also mixed with the power of hell's ice flames. Murong Yu had a feeling that after his angel's wings completely transformed into the power of chaos, he would enter the next stage of the army, symbol technique. In the holy world, even false saints could fly in the sky. However, their speed was not fast. In fact, the average saint's speed was not necessarily that fast. However, the speed of the angel's wings far exceeded the saint realm. According to Hichu's words, Murong Yu's speed was comparable to the great saint realm. However, this also gave Murong Yu a big blow, because in the divine world his speed was faster than the experts who were several realms higher than him. However, thinking that this was the holy world, he felt relieved. There were two vast mountain ranges near White Sun City. One was the Blood Rain Mountain, which had the Blood Rain Mountain and some other sections. The other mountain range was the White Sun Mountain Range. The heaven and earth origin energy in this mountain range was very rich, even more than the Blood Rain Mountain. However, there was no sect here. This was because there were many demonic beasts and vicious beasts in the White Sun Mountain Range. There were even ninth stage, profound sages and terrifying existences that had reached the ancient sage realm. Usually, human cultivators would hunt demonic beasts in the White Sun Mountain Range. At this time, Murong Yu had already arrived at the periphery of the White Sun Mountain Range, handing in 100 sage cores in 100 years, which is 1 per year. Really black-hearted. Murong Yu was a little unhappy in his heart. However, living under someone else's roof could only be bullied. There weren't many demonic beasts in the periphery. Occasionally, he would see some demonic beasts or vicious beasts in the vicinity. However, Murong Yu didn't make a move. Even if these demonic beasts were killed, they wouldn't have any effect on him. Young master, you'd better start collecting everything that contains powerful energy. It'll be of great use to you. Hichu's voice suddenly sounded. What's the use? Murong Yu was startled. You will know when the time comes. For example, sage cores, sage crystal life veins, and even various sage tools. Don't miss anything that contains a huge amount of energy. Murong Yu rolled his eyes. Hichu, this guy, always spoke like this. He always said the beginning and didn't continue, which made his heart itch. Crow. Suddenly, a loud frog croak came from afar. The sound was so loud that Murong Yu's eardrums almost burst. At the same time, a giant black frog the size of a small mountain appeared in Murong Yu's sight. Before Murong Yu could figure out why there would be frogs in the forest, a huge black tongue shot out from the giant frog's mouth. Asterisk chi-chi. Asterisk wherever it passed. The void seemed to shatter, and the air exploded. An extremely strong and dangerous aura rushed over. Murong Yu was shocked, because when he saw the tongue, it had already appeared in front of him. An incomparably foul stench assailed Murong Yu's nostrils, almost causing him to faint. What a fast speed! Murong Yu exclaimed in his heart and immediately threw out a punch. Be careful. This is the Broken Sun Dark Giant Frog. It's at least a 3rd level saint. It's extremely strong and poisonous. Hichu's warning rang in Murong Yu's ears, but it was too late. Murong Yu's fist had already collided with the Broken Sun Dark Giant Frog's tongue. As soon as they came into contact, Murong Yu only felt softness in his hand. Moreover, he was surprised to find that the power he threw out was quickly dissipated. However, in the instant he was surprised, the Broken Sun Dark Giant Frog's tongue suddenly hardened. A wave of power that was as shocking as a tsunami burst out. Boom! Crack! Crack! Murong Yu's large hand immediately broke apart. That huge force quickly rushed up his arm and into his body. Murong Yu's face turned pale with fright. With a thought, his angelic wings flapped fiercely as he retreated in a flash. However, the Broken Sun Dark Giant Frog's tongue was like a shadow, and it chased after him like a gangrene. In fact, Murong Yu even saw the giant Sun Dark Frog's tongue curl up and swallow his severed arm. Seeing that his arm was swallowed, Murong-Yu was instantly enraged. However, the broken sun dark giant frog was much stronger than him, and there was no way he could withstand it. Therefore, with a thought, he took out Hichu Luoshu and the Yin-Yang cauldron to block in front of him. Bang! Bang! After two muffled sounds, the two super treasures were directly blasted away. On the other hand, Murong-Yu's mind was greatly shaken, as if his mind was being torn apart. Chapter 12:16. Bang! Hichu Luoshu and the Yin-Yang cauldron were sent flying by the broken sun dark frog's tongue. The incomparably stinky tongue, which carried a terrifying aura that could destroy the world, continued to rush towards Murong-Yu without any hesitation. A loud muffled sound rang out as the tongue slammed into Murong-Yu's body. In an instant, an incomparably terrifying force bombarded his body. Crack, crack. A sound like crystal cracking was heard. Murong-Yu's clothes were torn to shreds. His body began to crack like porcelain. In just the blink of an eye, his entire physical body was almost shattered. This was even after Murong-Yu had quickly retreated. Otherwise, his physical body might not have cracked. However, he would be caught by the broken sun dark frog's tongue. If Murong-Yu were to be caught, he would most likely be devoured by the giant frog. Whoosh! As his body cracked, Murong-Yu felt a chill all over his body. Then he saw that his entire body had unknowingly turned pitch black, as if he was covered in ink. At the same time, an extremely strange power rushed towards his mind and soul at a rapid speed. Poison. He was poisoned. Murong-Yu instantly came to his senses. However, his entire body had started to fester. His body, which had reached the holy physique level, had turned into mud and was extremely loose. There was no power at all. At the same time, the power in his body was being invaded quickly, and his meridians were being swallowed. In just a breath's time, it was not even enough. Murong-Yu's realm and strength dropped to the level of a rank 10 quasi-saint. This shocked him greatly. His dark face changed drastically. The power in his body was converted into life force and was about to expel the poison and repair his body. However, he was shocked to find that the poison had entered his soul space. It's over. Murong-Yu never thought that the poison of the broken sun dark frog would be so terrifying and fast. With a thought, he was about to recall the Yin-Yang cauldron and use the flame of chaos to burn the poison. However, it was too late. Before the Yin-Yang cauldron entered his soul space, the poison had already invaded his soul. Murong-Yu's heart sank, and he immediately went crazy. He controlled the Yin-Yang cauldron to rush and faster. He would not give up until the last moment. As the poison invaded his soul, Murong-Yu could only stand on the spot and could not continue to retreat because his realm had plummeted. At this moment, the broken sun dark frog's tongue tore through the void again and swept over. It was about to wrap around Murong-Yu's body. Suddenly, Murong-Yu felt his body tighten. He scanned with divine thought and saw that his body had been wrapped by the broken sun dark frog. At the same time, a strong force acted on his body, pulling him into the giant sun breaker dark frog's mouth. The frog wanted to devour Murong-Yu. Although Murong-Yu had noticed it, he didn't do anything, because he was powerless. The first thing that was the most God. The terrifying poison had come into contact with his soul. Just as Murong-Yu thought that a large part of his soul would be invaded, there was a sudden change. Boom! Murong-Yu's soul shook violently. Following that, a black sacred light burst out from his soul and soared into the sky. At this moment, his soul seemed to have turned into a burning flame. It seemed transparent and pure black at the same time. An incomparably powerful force fiercely emanated from his soul, sweeping through the entire soul space. The terrifying aura even spread out of Murong-Yu's body and swept in all directions. Plop! Plop! The power was like the power to destroy the heavens. It instantly swept through the soul space where Murong-Yu was. When the terrifying aura enveloped their hearts, the souls of countless living beings in the area trembled violently. They could not help but kneel as if they had seen a superior. In the end, countless living beings directly knelt on the ground and surrendered. Even the giant sun-dark frog that was using its tongue to wrap around Murong Yu's body shook violently. In an instant, it threw Murong Yu away. Although it did not kneel on the ground, its soul was terrified. It did not dare to continue attacking or escape. Presumably, it was resisting the terrifying pressure that caused even its soul to tremble. At the same time that terrifying aura was released, Murong Yu's soul burned like a ball of flame of chaos. Then he counterattacked. The poison that came into contact with the soul first made a sharp and unpleasant sound. Then, under Murong Yu's gaze, they were annihilated. In less than a breath's time, the poison that invaded his soul space was completely annihilated. And this was just the beginning. The flame of chaos that erupted from the soul quickly spread out of the soul space. Then, it quickly burned in Murong Yu's body. In an instant, Murong Yu's entire body was burning with the black flame of chaos. As soon as the poison came into contact with the flame of chaos, it was annihilated. In fact, before Murong Yu could react, his body speed had been completely annihilated. At the same time, his life force was also quickly flushed. His body quickly recovered to its peak. Is this one of the powers of the soul sanctification? Murong Yu was shocked. He immediately communicated with Hichu. It should be. Everyone with a soul sanctification has some special abilities. You need to explore them well. If you use them well, they're much stronger than those with a soul sanctification, physical body, and cultivation. Hichu was not very clear, but he still said so. Murong Yu nodded and then pondered. The soul could unleash a power that could shock all living beings, and it could even burn the flame of chaos. This flame could easily annihilate the poison of the giant frog. One must know that whether it was Murong Yu's physical body, saint energy, or life force, they could not do anything to the poison. In other words, the flame of chaos that erupted from the soul was much stronger than any of his current powers. I wonder if I can use this power. This thought suddenly appeared in Murong Yu's mind. Boom! Just as this thought appeared in his mind, his soul that had returned to its original state shook violently again. The flame of chaos appeared again. Murong Yu was pleasantly surprised. With a thought, he grabbed at the air with his big hand. The next moment, he was pleasantly surprised to see a ball of flame of chaos in his palm. It was a ball of flame that was as black as ink. It was burning and dancing in Murong Yu's palm. However, Murong Yu did not feel any temperature from the flame. It was neither cold nor hot. He did not even feel any power from the flame. However, Murong Yu absolutely didn't believe that the primal spiritual flame didn't have any power. Croak! At this moment, the giant frog roared loudly. Its eyes were filled with fear as it looked at Murong Yu. Or rather, it was looking at the ball of flame of chaos in Murong Yu's hand. Then, it turned around abruptly and quickly fled into the distance. Where do you think you're going? Murong Yu roared violently. He took a step forward and charged forward with a teleport. Then he slapped his big hand out. The big hand that contained the flame of chaos pressed directly on the giant frog's body. With a poof, the flame of chaos entered the giant frog's body and disappeared. However, Murong Yu's hand was bounced back by the giant frog's rebounding force. It was almost crushed. No effect. He slapped the giant frog, and the flame of chaos entered the giant frog's body. However, the giant frog continued to fly forward as if nothing had happened. That's not right. Although the giant frog is flying, it doesn't seem to have any aura of life. Murong Yu suddenly frowned. At this moment, the giant frog that had been flying suddenly stopped. Like a toppled mountain, it fell to the ground and smashed a huge hole in the ground. There was no aura of life and no aura of soul. Murong Yu frowned slightly and took a step forward. His divine telekinesis that was as vast as the ocean came out of his body and enveloped the giant frog. There were no injuries on the giant frog's body. Every part of its body was in peak condition and filled with explosive power. There are no injuries. How did it die suddenly? Murong Yu frowned slightly, and his divine telekinesis entered the giant frog's soul space. Then, He knew the cause of death of the giant frog. The giant frog's soul had been annihilated. The entire soul space was empty. Murong-Yu even felt the remaining aura of the flame of chaos in its soul space. The flame of chaos has no effect on the physical body. It can only annihilate the soul. Although the giant sunbreak dark frog's soul wasn't very powerful, it was still a third-order saint. It couldn't even resist before it was annihilated. Murong-Yu's heart was filled with shock, excitement, and joy. If I can make good use of it, the soul will be one of the greatest assassins in the holy world. Murong-Yu's eyes shot out two beams of holy light. He suddenly wanted to roar out loud. Let's find some beasts to practice on. I'll try to discover more abilities of the soul as soon as possible. Murong-Yu quickly took out the giant frog Saint Nucleus. This third-level Saint Nucleus was equivalent to a few first-level Saint Nuclei. However, just as he was about to leave, Hichu suddenly said, "The giant frog's body also contains a large amount of energy. Don't waste it. Keep it." Murong-Yu was surprised, but he quickly kept the giant frog's body into the Hichu Luo Shu. Since Hichu said so, it was naturally useful, although he didn't know what use it was. After keeping the giant frog's body, Murong-Yu continued to move deeper into the White Sun mountain range. While hunting beasts for their Saint Nuclei, he also wanted to discover the abilities of the soul. Chapter 12:17. Murong-Yu did not venture too deep into the mountains. He only roamed around the outskirts of the White Sun mountain range. After all, he would be in trouble if he encountered a great sage or a beast of a higher realm. Even so, they still encountered danger several times over the next few days. There was once when he was chased by a ninth-order Saint Realm demonic beast for 3 days and 3 nights. Although Murong-Yu managed to kill it with the flame of primal chaos in the end. It was a close call. After fighting with the beast for a period of time, Murong-Yu was finally able to use the power of the flame of primal chaos. The flame of primal chaos could only be used on the soul. However, it was not omnipotent. The burst of pressure could suppress any demonic beasts and ferocious beasts in the Saint Realm. It could even intimidate demonic beasts and ferocious beasts in the Great Saint Realm. However, the stronger one was, the less intimidating the aura would be. Moreover, there were some beasts that were especially ferocious. Although they were intimidated, they were still ferocious. As long as they were used to deceive, Murong-Yu's flame of primal chaos would have less effect on them. Some beasts could even break free from the flame of primal chaos easily and escape. However, some beasts did not care about the flame of primal chaos and pounced on Murong-Yu. The 9th-stage sage beasts that chased after Murong-Yu were like that. However, Murong-Yu did not expect to be able to intimidate and suppress these beasts with just the flame of primal chaos. It was enough as long as they were intimidated. After all, if one soul was intimidated in a fight between experts, it would turn the tables around. Other than that, the power of the flame of primal chaos could not kill everyone. In Murong-Yu's memories, the strongest demonic beast in Claypot was a 9th-level sage. That was after he had expended a tremendous amount of effort to kill him. Just like strength, the higher the realm, the more terrifying the power. It was the same for the flame of primal chaos. However, he could basically kill any demonic beast or human cultivator in the Saint Realm. At least, this was one of his trump cards. After all, he was only a false saint. Who knew that he could kill a 9th-level saint? Moreover, as long as Murong-Yu's soul realm continued to increase, his strength would naturally become stronger. It wasn't a legend to surpass one's cultivation level to kill an enemy. After all, strictly speaking, Murong-Yu's soul was only that of a first-order sage. A first-order sage could kill a 9th-order sage. This was already a legend. It wasn't impossible for it to be even more magical. Apart from the soul pressure and the soul flame of primal chaos, I am unable to uncover the other abilities of the soul for the time being. Murong-Yu muttered in his heart, feeling slightly displeased. This guy was a classic example of a man whose heart was not content, was like a snake try to swallow an elephant. His two abilities were already heaven-defying enough. If he had an even more heaven-defying ability, wouldn't heaven and earth not tolerate him? Of course, greed was part of everyone's nature. Who wouldn't want to become stronger? These sacred nuclei should be enough for 1,000 years of rent, right? Murong Yu had killed more than 1,000 Yao and vicious beasts in the past few days. Moreover, there were 9th Order sages and 8th Order sages. These crystal nuclei were enough for him to live in White Sun City for a few thousand years, or even tens of thousands of years. Thus, Murong Yu prepared to return. On the way, he met a 5th Order sage Purple Sky Fox. Murong Yu naturally wasn't willing to let go of these Yao and vicious beasts that he met. Whether it was the crystal nuclei or the corpses of the Yao and vicious beasts, they were all very useful to him. However, at the same time that he destroyed the Purple Sky Fox's soul with a punch, with his shio sound, a black light shot out from the forest. It was a black arrow. This arrow landed on the Purple Sky Fox's head within a breath of time after its soul was destroyed. He shot out of the way. Murong Yu was stunned at first. Then he felt a little angry in his heart. This was his prey. The other party clearly knew that he was fighting with a Purple Sky Fox. So why did they interfere? Yay! He had finally killed the Purple Sky Raccoon. It should be a 5th Order sage, right? I didn't think that I would kill it so easily. Could it be that my strength has increased again? Hurry up and bring the Purple Sky Fox back for me. I want to bring it back and show it to my father. Just as Murong Yu was feeling angry in his heart, a clear voice sounded from the forest. Then, a group of 5 people appeared in front of Murong Yu. The leader was a young lady. She wore a tea green satin gown with a dark green collar and a yellow rose pattern printed on it. The gown was a tea yellow fairy dress that dragged on the ground. She wore a pea green cloud water golden dragon embroidered satin gauze. Her long black hair was tied up in an elegant and unique hairstyle. There was a squirrel flower embedded with gold and jewels in her hair. She wore a jade bracelet on her hand that was as smooth as cream. Her waist was tied with a silk belt with a pale yellow begonia golden silk embroidered sachet. She wore a pair of green shoes with pearls on her feet. She looked like a mischievous elf. The young lady was very youthful and beautiful, but Murong Yu frowned slightly, because he only needed to look at this young lady to know what kind of person she was, an unruly young lady. It was obvious that the 4 people behind her were not her bodyguards. What else could they be? At this moment, the young lady was looking excitedly at the Purple Sky Fox's corpse in front of Murong Yu. One of her guards was already striding towards the Purple Sky Squirrel. Murong Yu? They ignored him and turned a blind eye to him. Murong Yu suddenly laughed coldly in his heart. He took a few steps forward and reached out with his hand, directly grabbing the Purple Sky Fox's corpse. Then, in a flash, he kept it in the Hichu Luo Shu. What's wrong with you? You even dare to steal my prey? Seeing Murong Yu keep the Purple Sky Fox's corpse, the young lady acted as if she had just seen Murong Yu. She was instantly enraged. She quickly took a few steps forward and stood in front of Murong Yu. Then, she angrily looked at Murong Yu and questioned him. Murong Yu could not help but laugh out of anger. This was his prey in the first place. He was already being magnanimous by not bickering with her, but this girl actually dared to twist the truth? He immediately sneered and said, "With your strength, you can kill a level 5 sage Purple Sky Fox?" As he spoke, Murong Yu sized up the young lady. The young lady was stunned because she was only a level 3 sage. Under normal circumstances, she could not even kill a level 3 sage demonic beast, let alone a level 3 sage Purple Sky Fox that was 2 stages higher than her. Could it be that I really didn't kill it? Oomph. My arrow was clearly stuck in the Purple Sky Fox's head. How could it not be that I killed it? A thought flashed through the young lady's mind. Then, she looked at Murong Yu unhappily and said, "Of course it was me who killed it. Do you see the bow in my hand? That's a mid-grade saint artifact. Isn't killing a mere 5th Order sage Purple Sky Raccoon a piece of cake?" As she spoke, the young lady proudly waved the saint artifact in her hand. Murong Yu did not even look at it. Wasn't it just a mid-grade saint artifact? His Chinquan Bao was already far ahead. Hichu, Luo Shu, wait, that was an existence that surpassed Saint artifacts. Even if you have a high-grade Saint artifact, you can't kill the purple sky fox. Because you don't have that ability. I was the one who killed this purple sky raccoon, Murong Yu said indifferently. Then, he turned around to leave. However, the young lady's guards flashed and blocked Murong Yu's path. All of them looked at Murong Yu with killing intent. The young lady looked at Murong Yu in shock and then laughed loudly. Are you joking? You, a false saint, can actually kill a level 5 sage demonic beast? Are you trying to make me laugh to death? Murong Yu's face darkened. Only now did he remember that his cultivation had not reached the sage realm. Killing a 5th-order sage demonic beast with such a cultivation realm was simply too shocking. Immediately, he took out the purple sky fox's corpse from the Hichu Luo Shu and threw it at the young lady's feet. Then, he turned around to leave. Stop! The young lady immediately shouted. Murong Yu stopped in his tracks. It was not that he was obedient, but that the guards blocked his path again. This made him very angry. What's your name? The young lady came in front of Murong Yu and looked at Murong Yu curiously. At the same time, Murong Yu felt that his body was covered by the spiritual sense of the 4 guards. If he did anything bad, they would immediately kill Murong Yu. I don't know you. Why should I tell you? Murong Yu coldly snorted. He hated people who used their power to bully others. My name is Fong Ziwen. Do we know each other? Shouldn't you tell me your name? The young lady, who was Fong Ziwen, looked at Murong Yu and smiled. Murong Yu's face was filled with black lines, but he still said his name. Otherwise, he would be too petty. Murong Yu? Not bad, a good name. How about this? I see that your skills are not ordinary. With some training, you should be able to reach a good realm. Why don't you follow me? Fong Ziwen looked at Murong Yu and extended an olive branch. Murong Yu, on the other hand, jumped in fright. He then looked Fong Ziwen up and down suspiciously. Miss Fong, I'm not handsome, and I'm only a false sage. Please let me go. Fong Ziwen was stunned. This was the first time someone had rejected her. However, she quickly regained her senses. She was furious. Bastard, who do you think I am? I just want you to be my guard. Murong Yu was speechless. He thought that Fong Ziwen wanted him to be her gigolo. However, even if he was her guard, it was impossible. She wanted him, the great holy Lord Shengzhen, to be the guard of a little brat? That would make him laugh his head off. Not interested. Aya, how can you be like this? Do you know who I am? I'm a young lady of the City Lord's mansion. If you become my guard, I can guarantee that you'll quickly break through to the sage realm. Seeing Murong Yu refuse, Fong Ziwen quickly revealed her identity. However, she didn't show off. Chapter 12:18. Fong Tianhe, the City Lord of White Sun City, an undead realm expert. He was the most powerful existence in White Sun City and its vicinity. It was not an exaggeration to say that he could cover the sky with one hand. Even though Bloodrain Mountain had many disciples and even 9th-stage profound sages, they still had to respect Fong Tianhe. However, after meeting someone like Fong Tianhe, they still had to be respectful and did not dare to put on airs. Although any undead stage expert from the Bloodrain Mountain could easily kill Fong Tianhe. However, Fong Tianhe was a member of the 9 Saint Nation. If the Bloodrain Mountain dared to touch him, if Bloodrain Mountain dared to attack him, the experts of the 9 Holy Empire would flatten the entire Bloodrain Mountain. Fong Ziwen was the miss of the City Lord's mansion, Fong Tianhe's only daughter, the apple of his eye. At this moment, she was known by everyone, because everyone wanted to marry a beauty and then cover the sky with one hand in White Sun City. And because of Fong Ziwen's identity, no one dared to offend or refuse her. Not interested. After knowing Fong Ziwen's identity, Murong Yu immediately refused. Not to mention Fong Tianhe, who was just an undead realm expert. Even if it was an ancient sage realm expert, he wouldn't be their guard. Because they weren't worthy. Seeing that Murong Yu still refused without any doubt after revealing her identity, Fong Ziwen couldn't help but get angry. But at the same time, she also looked at Murong Yu in a new light. If it was someone else, they would have been overjoyed. After all, to be Fong Ziwen's guard, he could be considered as a member of the city lord's mansion. Wouldn't resources and the like come rolling in? Could it be that this stinking brat is playing hard to get? He's deliberately not agreeing, but he's actually laughing in his heart. Fong Ziwen suddenly had this thought. Miss Fong, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Morongyu glanced at Fong Ziwen, then looked at the guards in front of him and slowly said. Those guards still didn't move in front of Morongyu. Without Fong Ziwen's order, they didn't dare to let Morongyu go. They were very loyal. This stinking brat has successfully attracted my attention. In some ways, he has succeeded. While Fong Ziwen was thinking about whether she should continue to ask Morongyu to be her guard, an untimely voice came from the forest. So you're here. I've had a hard time looking for you. Fong Ziwen's expression changed, and a trace of disgust appeared on her face. At the same time, Morongyu saw a group of people walking out of the forest. The person in the lead was about 20 years old. He was dressed in white and had a handsome face. He was fanning himself with a fan in his hand, giving off an air of elegance. If it was only based on appearance, this person was undoubtedly a handsome man. However, Morongyu saw traces of sinister light flickering in the depths of his eyes. The light on his body was also black. He was definitely an evil person. The young man quickly ran towards Fong Ziwen. It was as if he had just seen Morongyu on the way, and a vicious light flashed in his eyes. In fact, Morongyu could even feel an intense, killing intent penetrating his body. Morongyu narrowed his eyes and couldn't help but look at the person who wanted to kill him. His strength wasn't great, but he had definitely surpassed the Saint Realm. He was a great Saint Realm expert. He was 2 realms higher than Morongyu. After looking at Morongyu, the young man's gaze returned to Fong Ziwen. At the same time, he said, Wan'er, why didn't you tell me you were coming here? If you met a bad person or demon beast, you would be in trouble. Lidiyu, please show some respect. We're just friends. Please don't call me Wan'er. You don't have a right. You can call me Fong Ziwen or Miss Fong. Fong Ziwen looked at Lidiyu with an unhappy expression and spoke in a bad mood. However, Lidiyu clearly didn't have that awareness. After running to Fong Ziwen's side, he turned his head and looked at Morongyu indifferently. He continued, Is this little bastard harassing you? You might as well kill him. Morongyu's eyes became cold, and his heart was filled with killing intent. He didn't have any interaction with Lidiyu, but he wanted to kill him because of a guess. This kind of person must be used to killing people. God knows how many people he had killed. Morongyu was a smart person. He could tell at a glance that Lidiyu was Fong Ziwen's pursuer. This guy must have thought that Morongyu was also pursuing Fong Ziwen, so he wanted to eliminate his love rival. How dare you? If you dare to touch a hair of his, I'll make your Li family disappear from White Cloud Poplar. Fong Ziwen suddenly shouted coldly. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. As for Morongyu, he was so speechless that black lines appeared on his face. Originally, Lidiyu regarded him as a rival in love. Now that Fong Ziwen said this, wouldn't his guess be confirmed? Sure enough, at this moment, Lidiyu's killing intent soared. His eyes flashed with a shocking killing intent. Little bastard, who do you think you are? You dare to compete with me for a woman. You're dead. Morongyu suddenly heard Lidiyu's voice. Morongyu didn't want to speak. He just sneered. Perhaps because she felt Lidiyu's killing intent, or perhaps because she found out that Morongyu was in danger because of her. All of a sudden, Fong Ziwen did something that no one had expected. She suddenly came to Morongyu's side and grabbed Morongyu's right arm. She raised her head arrogantly and looked at Lidiyu. Lidiyu, he's my fiancé. If you dare to touch a hair of his, your Li family should prepare to be destroyed. At this moment, Morongyu's face was filled with black lines. He really didn't know whether Fong Ziwen really didn't know, or did she do it on purpose? Or was she really big-breasted and brainless? Didn't she know that she had already forced Morongyu into a dead end? Lidiyu would never let him go. Good. When did you have a fiancé? Lidiyu shouted several times. His killing intent soared. His cold killing intent filled the air and shrouded the world, causing the temperature of the area to plummet. I don't have any relationship with you. Do I need your approval to have a fiancé? Fong Ziwen only hugged Murong Yu's shoulder. Her soft and firm breasts only stuck to Murong Yu's arm. However, Murong Yu didn't have the heart to enjoy this. He was now in danger. Hey, stinking brat, I want to see if you dare to refuse me. Now let's see if you can still refuse. Fong Ziwen secretly glanced at Murong Yu's dark face and secretly laughed. It turned out that she wasn't big-breasted and brainless. Instead, she was shrewd. This was just one of her schemes. No wonder you refused my many marriage proposals. I see. However, I won't give up. You two better be careful. Don't suddenly die before the marriage. Li Diyu said with a dark face and a deep voice. His voice was cold and filled with killing intent. It was as if he wanted to swallow Murong Yu whole. His words were full of threat. Li Diyu naturally wasn't an idiot. He also knew that Murong Yu couldn't really be Fong Ziwen's fiancé. However, even if Fong Ziwen only used this to provoke him, Murong Yu still had to die. Let's go. Staring at Murong Yu with incomparable hatred, Li Diyu quickly left. If he didn't leave, he was afraid that he would explode and kill. Although he wanted to kill Murong Yu, and he had killed a lot of people like Murong Yu who had a little relationship with Fong Ziwen. However, he never killed in front of Fong Ziwen. He always did it secretly. After all, Fong Ziwen's father was the city lord of White Sun City. Once he was convicted of murder, he wouldn't be able to marry Fong Ziwen in this lifetime. In fact, he didn't have much of a chance right now. This was because he wasn't the only one chasing after Fong Ziwen. Okay, they're all gone. You can let me go. Murong Yu indifferently glanced at Fong Ziwen and said with a bit of unhappiness, How many people want to kiss this young lady but can't? Fong Ziwen fiercely glared at Murong Yu and cursed in her heart. After Fong Ziwen let go, Murong Yu wanted to leave. Stop. Where do you think you're going? Li Diyu is a narrow-minded and ruthless person. He will definitely kill you. Fong Ziwen quickly shouted in a low voice. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Wasn't this matter caused by her? She gave him a strong enemy for no reason. The Li clan is a big clan in the city. They have an undead ancestor. Unless you immediately leave White Sun City, you won't be able to escape from Li Diyu's evil hands. Of course, you have another choice. Become her guard? Murong Yu looked at Fong Ziwen with a gloomy face. He was very unhappy in his heart. You're really smart. How about it? Do you want to be my guard? Fong Ziwen looked at Murong Yu with an appreciative gaze. She was very satisfied. What if I say no? Then you'll be killed by Li Diyu. Fong Ziwen said indifferently. Murong Yu sneered in his heart. He naturally wasn't afraid of Li Diyu and the Li clan. At worst, he would just leave White Sun City. Just as he was about to refuse, his heart suddenly moved. What are the benefits of becoming your guard? Fong Ziwen was immediately overjoyed because she thought there was hope. I can provide you with enough resources to cultivate Saint Crystals and Saint Tools. Can I participate in the City Lord's Mansion's various secret expeditions? Murong Yu asked again, because when he was in the city, he occasionally heard that the City Lord's Mansion was going to explore a secret area. Yes. Fong Ziwen almost patted her chest as she answered with certainty. Murong Yu nodded. That's not enough. If you want me to be your guard, I won't be your hired thug. I won't be your hired thug, and you can't order me around as you please. Just like today, if you want to go out, you have to listen to me. You can't force me. How is this a guard? This was a consecration. Chapter 1219. Fong Ziwen's 4 guards were speechless when they heard this. They really couldn't understand why their young miss wanted Murong Yu to be her guard. Murong Yu's request wasn't to be a guard, but to be a consecrator. Most importantly, Murong Yu was only a false saint. Although the City Lord's Mansion was the absolute overlord of White Sun City and had plenty of resources. But there was no need to waste them on this person, right? What made them angry was that Fong Ziwen actually agreed to Murong Yu's many requests. She even looked happy, as if she had picked up a treasure. This puzzled them. However, they were only servants and had no right to interfere. Thus, they could only curse in their hearts. Brat, I told you to reject me. Do you really think I'm only big-breasted and brainless? You, a false saint, actually killed a 5th-level saint demonic beast. If you become strong in the future, you'll definitely soar to the sky. Fong Ziwen smiled proudly in her heart, her eyes full of slyness. She wasn't big-breasted and brainless. At first, she really thought she had killed the purple sky fox with one arrow. However, she quickly realized that it was just as Murong said. Even if she had a mid-grade saint weapon, she couldn't kill it. Then, Murong must have killed it. However, Murong was only a false saint. Thus, she wanted to recruit him. Once Murong grew, he would definitely shock the world. Fong Ziwen was very happy with her decision. However, she didn't know that Murong was secretly laughing. He had made so many requests. He wasn't a guard at all, let alone a servant. Moreover, he really needed a quiet environment to cultivate. Most importantly, he was really poor now. If he entered the city lord's mansion, he would be able to obtain a certain amount of resources and participate in those secret realms. Secret realms were equivalent to all kinds of treasures. A poor person might come out rich after entering. This kind of thing had happened to Murong many times. Immediately, the group left the White Sun Mountain Range and returned to White Sun City. However, when they arrived at the gates of White Sun City, Fu Tian and Yi Fu Tian were so scared that they wet their pants. Didn't Murong just arrive at White Sun City? He had hooked up with a young miss of the city lord's mansion so quickly. He had a bright future indeed. Therefore, when Murong and the others approached them, Fu Tian and Su Guang's faces were filled with reverence, and they prostrated themselves in admiration. He almost wanted to kneel down and acknowledge him as his master. Seeing their expressions, Murong naturally knew what they were thinking. He casually threw out a few saint cores of saint-level demonic beasts. My 2 brothers, the demonic beasts we hunted this time, were not too bad. Here are a few saint cores for you. Fu Tian and Su Guang didn't stand on ceremony, and they immediately placed the items into their storage rings. Of course, they thought that Murong had hooked up with Fong Ziwen, so these saint nuclei only belonged to Fong Ziwen. They had never thought that these saint nuclei were from the demonic beasts and vicious beasts that Murong had killed himself. Moreover, Murong even had a 9th-level saint nucleus in his hands. Otherwise, they might be scared to death. I'll come and drink with you guys when I have time. Murong smiled, and then strode into White Sun City with Fong Ziwen. After Murong and the others left, Fu Tian and Su Guang were still looking at Murong and the others' backs. Fu Tian, you really didn't make a mistake this time. Murong actually hooked up with young Miss Fong so quickly. His future is limitless. Su Guang sighed and said, I've always said that I have a good eye for people. This is just the beginning. Maybe we can even get a good job because of our relationship with Murong. Fu Tian laughed loudly, and he was very proud of himself. He wasn't proud of his limitless potential in the future, but because of his foresight. He knew that Murong was extraordinary. He was a hidden dragon that soared into the sky. I really couldn't tell. Murong is just a fake saint, but he actually managed to win young Miss Fong's heart. If we have the chance, we should ask him for advice. In the future, we can have beauties in our arms. Su Guang laughed, and there was a hint of lewdness in his voice. Just as Fu Tian and Su Guang were envious of Murong, a cold snort sounded. Fu Tian and Su Guang immediately looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young man with a gloomy face striding in from outside the city. When they saw this young man, Fu Tian and Yi Fu Tian's expressions changed drastically. What did you two just say? Who captured young Miss Fong's heart? The young man walked over and looked at Fu Tian and Su Guang with a gloomy face. Sensing the intense killing intent that enveloped their bodies, Fu Tian and Yi Fu Tian broke out in cold sweat and began to drip down their foreheads. Young Master Yuan, we were just casually talking. Please be magnanimous and don't bicker with us. Fu Tian's forehead was covered in sweat, but he still spoke carefully. Yuan Zhen was the leader of the younger generation of the Yuan clan, one of the 4 great clans of White Sun City. He was very powerful, and it was said that he had already stepped into the 9th-level Great Saint realm. He was one of the top experts of a younger generation in White Sun City. At the same time, he was also one of Fong Ziwen's pursuers, just like Li Diyu. However, Yuan Jun wasn't as ruthless as Li Diyu, who would directly eliminate their love rivals. However, Yuan Jun wasn't a good person either. Although he wouldn't do anything underhanded, he chose to directly challenge his love rivals. Over the years, he had defeated countless love rivals. Morong Yu was just a fake saint, so he wasn't qualified to fight with Yuan Jun. Hearing Fu Tian's words, Yuan Jun immediately glared at her. A huge pressure acted on Fu Tian and Su Guang, suppressing their bodies to the point of collapse. Young Master Yuan, please don't make things difficult for us. We were just casually talking. Up until now, has anyone captured Miss Fong's heart? We were just joking, Su Guang said, his heart pounding. You're right. Apart from me, who else in White Sun City is worthy of Fong Ziwen? Forget it. I won't make things difficult for you. Yuan Jin nodded, thinking that Su Guang was right. After muttering to himself, he was about to enter the city. Is that so? Yuan Jun? You're making me laugh my head off. At this moment, a mocking laugh sounded. Fu Tian and Su Guang's expressions changed again. They quietly looked up, and then their faces turned bitter. A young man in green clothes with a long sword on his back was walking over from afar, his figure graceful. However, his body was constantly emitting rays of sword-like aura, which attacked the surrounding void and caused it to ripple. Yuan Jun's face immediately darkened, and anger flashed in his eyes. Zhou Xiuzhu, what do you mean? Do you want to fight? The young man in green was the leader of the younger generation of a Zhou clan, one of the 4 great clans of White Sun City. Like Yuan Jun and the others, he was also one of Fong Ziwen's pursuers. In particular, he and Yuan Jun did not get along. Whenever they saw each other, they would either mock each other or directly fight. However, the two of them were evenly matched in strength. They had fought for many years, and there had never been a clear winner. Let's fight then. Come out. I'm going to teach you a lesson today. Zhou Xiuzhu was also furious. With his personality, if it were someone else, he might just laugh it off. However, for some reason, whenever he saw Yuan Jun, he would be filled with anger. On the contrary, Yuan Jun was the same. Today, I'm going to beat your pig head until it's swollen. Yuan Jun was furious, and his figure flashed as he rushed out. Today, I'm going to beat you until your mother can't recognize you. Zhou Xiuzhu also shouted angrily and rushed into the sky. Fu Tian and Su Guang looked at each other and then wiped the cold sweat on their foreheads. I wonder how long will these two fight? 3 days or 4 days? Maybe 10 days or half a month isn't strange. I'm already used to this kind of thing, Su Guang said calmly. 2 little brats. What right do they have to compete with me? On the roof of a building in the city, a young man looked at Zhou Xiuzhu and Yuan Jun fighting in the sky outside the city and shook his head continuously. He was Wu Guangda, an outstanding disciple of the Wu clan, one of the 4 great clans of White Sun City. Li Diyu, Wu Guangda, Yuan Jun, and Zhou Xiuzhu were known as the strongest of the younger generation in White Sun City. They were the 4 princes of White Sun City. Each of them had monstrous strength and great influence. These were all Morong Yu's so-called love rivals. How would Morong Yu deal with these experts? After entering the city, Fong Ziwen saw Morong Yu walking forward, and she couldn't help but ask, "Where are you going?" This road didn't lead to the city lord's mansion. Home. Morong Yu looked back at Fong Ziwen in astonishment. He didn't know why Fong Ziwen would ask such a stupid question. Seeing Morong Yu's eyes, Fong Ziwen immediately guessed what Morong Yu was thinking. She was angry in her heart. "You are my guard now, so you must live with me." Live with me? Morong Yu was shocked and took a few steps back. His face was full of astonishment. "Miss Fong, I didn't say I was going to sell my body." Fong Ziwen's pretty face reddened. She immediately realized she had said something wrong. She quickly explained, "What I meant was that you must live with them in the city lord's mansion." Morong Yu pretended to be enlightened. "I see. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to be your guard." Fong Ziwen's pretty face was red with embarrassment. She glared at Morong Yu, then turned around and walked quickly toward the city lord's mansion. Don't tell me you've really taken a fancy to my beauty? Otherwise, why would you want me to be your guard? Let me tell you, I'm not a casual person. Morong Yu followed behind Fong Ziwen and muttered. However, his voice wasn't soft. It was unknown if he was talking to himself or to Fong Ziwen. Fong Ziwen stopped abruptly. At this moment, she almost wanted to roar at Morong Yu. Why don't you look in the mirror? Do you think Miss Fong would like someone like you? As the saying goes, everyone has their own preferences. Maybe you really do like someone like me. Moreover, I think I'm quite handsome. Morong Yu seemed to know what Fong Ziwen was thinking and said in a low voice. Fong Ziwen's figure staggered. She paused for a moment, then quickly flew toward the city lord's mansion. She didn't even look at Morong Yu. Morong Yu, on the other hand, laughed out loud. This was because he had said those words on purpose for Fong Ziwen to hear. As for the last sentence, he did say it because he knew what Fong Ziwen was thinking. Chapter 1220. Young Miss found a top-notch servant. This servant is only a false saint, but he's a big shot. Not only does he have his own house in the city lord's mansion, but he also has many requests. This person doesn't even listen to young Miss's orders. He doesn't look like a servant, but a guard. He looks like a servant that young Miss invited back. In less than a day, the news of Morong Yu, this top-notch servant, spread throughout the city lord's mansion. In an instant, Morong Yu's house was surrounded by countless people. It wasn't that they had any opinions about Morong Yu and wanted to kill Morong Yu. They were just curious and wanted to see who this top-notch servant was. However, after Morong Yu came to the city lord's mansion, he went into seclusion and didn't come out. As for the others, they didn't dare to barge into his courtyard. This was because they all knew that Fong Ziwen valued Morong Yu very much. Once they offended Morong Yu, it would be the same as offending Fong Ziwen. At that time, they would be the ones in tragedy. While everyone in the city lord's mansion was filled with curiosity about Morong Yu, Fong Ziwen had already appeared in the city lord's mansion's main hall. In the main hall, there was also a middle-aged man with a dignified expression. This person was the city lord of White Sun City, Fong Tianhe, a rank 9 Undying Realm powerhouse. He was the most powerful person in the area around White Sun City. That Morong Yu is really so heaven-defying? Fong Tianhe sat on the main seat. After hearing Fong Ziwen's words, he frowned slightly. He didn't believe that Morong Yu, a false saint, could kill a rank 5 Saint Purple Sky raccoon. At first, I didn't believe it either. However, other than my arrow wound, there were no other injuries on the Purple Sky raccoon. At first, I also thought that I killed it, but I discovered a shocking fact. While speaking, Fong Ziwen took out the Purple Sky raccoon's corpse from her storage space and threw it on the floor of the main hall. With a thought, the Purple Sky raccoon's corpse flew in front of Fong Tianhe. An immensely powerful divine sense spread out and instantly enveloped the Purple Sky squirrel. Other than the arrow wound, the Purple Sky squirrel did not have any other injuries. Furthermore, Fong Tianhe was certain that the arrow was unable to kill the Purple Sky squirrel. His soul has been annihilated. Suddenly, Fong Tianhe exclaimed. His eyes flickered as he looked at Fong Ziwen. Do you think Morong Yu's soul is a saint? Fong Ziwen nodded with a serious expression. I do have the suspicion. It was also because his soul had become a saint that he could easily kill the Purple Sky raccoon. However, it seems that he is still a false saint. Or maybe he hasn't broken through yet, but his soul has already mutated. Father, regardless of whether his soul has already become a saint or not, once he matures, his future will be limitless. It was good to add flowers to brocade, but it was far from being able to provide timely help. If we can give him some benefits before he grows up, Fong Ziwen was boasting. How could she still look like an unruly young lady? He had the appearance of a wise man. In fact, this was Fong Ziwen's true face. You mean we should help him now? Fong Tianhe was a bit hesitant. According to my preliminary observations, this Morong Yu should not be an ingrate. If we can help him, once he matures, he will definitely repay us. At that time, we may be able to borrow his strength to take a few steps forward. He won't just stay in this small city for the rest of his life. Fong Ziwen and Fong Tianhe both knew that unless a miracle happened, their greatest achievement in life would be the White Sun City City Lord. It was basically impossible for him to become a manor head or a higher position. Moreover, Moronyu doesn't need many resources right now. Even if his soul is not a saint or he is an ingrate, we won't lose too much. Just treat it as an investment. After thinking for a while, Fong Tianhe nodded. Everyone's life was more or less an investment. It was normal for an investment to fail. However, once it succeeded, there would be great benefits. Do as you see fit. When the time is right, I will go and see him, Fong Tianhe said in a deep voice, agreeing to Fong Ziwen's plan. In the next few days, Fong Ziwen occasionally went to Muronyu's room to deliver various resources, such as low-grade Saint crystals, low-grade Saint artifacts, and so on. Fong Ziwen's actions confirmed Muronyu's title as a top-notch servant. This made the City Lord's mansion's guards and servants even more curious, envious, and hateful. For Muronyu, joining the City Lord's mansion meant that he did not need to pay any taxes. Moreover, these resources and the like were his salary. Of course, his salary was many times more than an ordinary guard. As for why it was only low-grade Saint crystals, in the Holy World, White Sun City was just the lowest level city in the Nine Holy Kingdom. Without any resources, it was already good to have low-grade Saint crystals. As for mid-grade Saint crystals, they were already quite precious. Even Fong Tianhe did not have much. Of course, Moronyu did not mind. It was better than nothing. Moreover, after he left the Blood Rain Mountain, he had already moved a few sacred mountains into the He-Tu and Luo-Shu world. Why did he move the mountains? Didn't Moronyu obtain a Mother of Saint Crystal in the Divine World? He wanted to use the Mother of Saint Crystal to nurture a Saint Crystal mine. Once he successfully nurtured it, he would have a lot of Saint Crystals. Of course, he did not use these Saint Crystals. So what if they were Saint Crystals? The power they contained was limited. The highest grade was, of course, the Saint Bloodline. However, the Saint Bloodline in the Holy World was rarer than the Divine Bloodline in the Divine World. For example, Fong Tianhe might not even have seen a Saint Crystal, let alone a Saint Bloodline. However, Muronyu's He-Tu Luo-Shu world contained a large number of Saint Bloodlines, Primal Chaos Saint Bloodlines, because no one could use these Saint Bloodlines. Therefore, when he was in the Primal Chaos secret plane, Lu Haozong collected a lot. It was enough for Muronyu to use for a while. Young Miss Fong, what's the matter? Muronyu was cultivating, but Fong Ziwen came in again, which made him a little depressed. Fong Ziwen came so frequently that she directly disturbed him, making him have no time to cultivate. Can I come and see if I have nothing to do? Fong Ziwen stared at Muronyu and said indifferently, You come to see me so often, it will cause misunderstandings. What if they misunderstand that you like me? Muronyu said speechlessly. Fong Ziwen did not know whether to laugh or cry. She felt that Muronyu was too narcissistic. You're my guard. Can I come to care about you? When will you be able to make a breakthrough? In a few days, there will be an auction in White Sun City. After the auction, our City Lord's mansion will have a trial in the secret plane. You'd better break through before then. Otherwise, with your strength. Fong Ziwen glanced at Muronyu and did not continue. But her meaning was very clear. I say, young Miss Fong, you come here every day. How can I have time to cultivate? If there's nothing else, then go back to where you came from. I want to cultivate. Fong Ziwen was about to explode with anger. A servant dared to drive away their master? This was something that had never happened before. But even though Fong Ziwen was so angry that she wanted to beat Muronyu up, she was driven out in the end. Stinking brat, I will remember you. Fong Ziwen gnashed her teeth and angrily left Muronyu's room. It seems that young miss was driven out by Muronyu. He really is a top-quality servant. When the news that Fong Ziwen was driven out by Muronyu spread, the City Lord's mansion's servants were shocked again. Each and every one of the servants was filled with admiration for Murong Yu, because he was the most awesome servant in history. Of course, some people admired him, while others disdained him. In particular, the stronger servants and guards were even more disdainful of Murong Yu. Murong Yu's actions were nothing more than sensationalism. What ability could a false saint have? Was he worthy of young Miss Fong's treatment? Clearly, these people were jealous of Murong Yu. On the other hand, there were some who remained calm and collected. As servants, they only needed to do their jobs well. No matter how awesome Murong Yu was, it had nothing to do with them. After Fong Ziwen left, Murong Yu's figure also disappeared. He entered the Hichu Luo Shu world. Accelerated time, cultivation. After he ascended to the holy world, the seventh layer of the chaotic celestial record showed signs of loosening. He was currently comprehending it and could break through at any time. Once he broke through, his cultivation would enter the saint realm. Moreover, according to Hichu, as long as he broke through to the saint realm, he would have a big surprise. However, Hichu didn't say what the surprise was. Murong Yu only vaguely felt that the surprise Hichu mentioned seemed to have something to do with collecting all kinds of things that contained a lot of power. Since Hichu didn't say, Murong Yu didn't care. As long as he broke through, wouldn't he know what the surprise was? However, what he was comprehending now was the chaotic celestial record. It was different from using the saint bloodline to accumulate power. That way, Murong Yu didn't feel the slightest pressure. It was because he had enough power and time. However, comprehending something like this wasn't something he could break through at will. After a few days, he felt that the chaotic celestial record was about to break through to the seventh layer. However, he was still one step away. On this day, Fong Ziwen came to Murong Yu's house again. Then, without Murong Yu's permission, she directly barged in. Murong Yu had left his divine while in the courtyard. Therefore, when Fong Ziwen came in, he appeared. The auction has begun, Fong Ziwen said to Murong Yu expressionlessly. Murong Yu frowned slightly. The auction didn't attract him at all. It was because he didn't have the money to auction. What he cared about was the exploration of the secret realm. He wanted to break through before the exploration of the secret realm. Don't talk nonsense. Either you come with me to the auction, or you leave the city lord's mansion immediately. Fong Ziwen threw down these words, then turned and left. Did this little girl eat gunpowder? Why is she so fiery? Murong Yu muttered, but in the end, he still followed her. If he was kicked out of the city lord's mansion, he would lose face. Most importantly, once he left the city lord's mansion, there would be no place for him in White Sun City, because Li Diyu would definitely not let him go. Chapter 12:21. Whether it was an immortal world or in the holy world, an auction house was an indispensable existence. The Blue Flame Auction House was one of the top auction houses in the holy world. It even had a branch in White Sun City. Normally, the Blue Flame Auction House would organize a small auction every 100 years and a medium auction every 1,000 years. The auction they were holding now was a large auction that was held every 10,000 years. In the holy world, time had no effect on a certain group of saints. This was because they were already immortal. So why would they hold a small auction every 100 years? What was the use? One had to know that apart from the immortal experts, there were many people in the holy world who were limited by their lifespans. There were many of them, and they were the best sellers in the auction house. Moreover, don't look down on a small auction. How could the items that could be auctioned be ordinary? As soon as Murong Yu and Fong Ziwen stepped out of the city lord's mansion, a mushy voice that made Murong Yu's hair stand on end and gave him goosebumps sounded. Murong Yu didn't even need to look to know who the owner of the voice was. Sure enough, before the voice had even finished, a young man quickly walked over and wanted to get close to Fong Ziwen. Who else could it be but Li Diyu? Fong Ziwen frowned and revealed a displeased expression. A trace of disgust flashed through her eyes. Murong Yu, your value as a guard is about to be revealed. At this moment, Fong Ziwen's voice sounded in Murong Yu's ears. Murong Yu's face darkened. Fong Ziwen's meaning was very clear. She wanted Murong Yu to block Li Diyu. Muron Yu looked at Fong Ziwen's other guards with a dark expression. Although they were looking at Li Diyu with vigilance, they didn't do anything. None of them blocked Li Diyu's path. Although they were loyal, they didn't dare to offend Li Diyu. Muron Yu sighed inwardly. He was unlucky. Immediately, he took a step forward and blocked Fong Ziwen's path. He expressionlessly looked at the approaching Li Diyu. "Young Master Li, my family's young miss is going to the auction house now. Please don't block the way." Muron Yu had suddenly appeared and blocked his path. Li Diyu was already unhappy. After hearing Muron Yu's words, the anger and killing intent in his heart surged. "Little bastard, it's you again. Who did you say is enough?" Li Diyu's eyes were spitting fire as he stared at Muron Yu with a murderous look. He wished he could slap him to death. "Whoever responds is a dog." Muron Yu was not afraid at all and said with disdain, "Son of a bitch, how dare you say it's a dog? You're dead." Li Diyu was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. With a roar, he stretched out his big hand and slammed it down on Muron Yu's head. Muron Yu looked at Li Diyu with disdain, then took a step forward unhurriedly. In the next moment, his figure flashed, and he appeared behind Fong Ziwen. As a result, Li Diyu's hand, which was originally aimed at Muron Yu, was now aimed at Fong Ziwen's towering chest. Fong Ziwen was not in a good mood today. When she saw that Li Diyu wanted to play rogue with her, she was immediately angry. "Good. Li Diyu, not only do you want to play rogue with me, but you also want to kill me." Fong Ziwen was furious and looked at Li Diyu with fire in her eyes. Seeing this scene, Fong Ziwen's other guards' expressions changed. Their figures flickered and they all rushed forward. They unleashed their strongest attacks. Some went straight for Li Diyu, while others tried to block Li Diyu's attack. At the same time, when Fong Ziwen's guards attacked, Li Diyu's guards also rushed up. However, at this time, Li Diyu reacted. He immediately withdrew his attack and retreated. Although he wanted to play rogue with Fong Ziwen more than once, it was not in this kind of situation. The most important thing was that he was played by Muron Yu. Originally, he always maintained a gentle and refined appearance in front of Fong Ziwen. Although he knew that Fong Ziwen was very clear about his evil deeds, he still had to keep up appearances, didn't he? But today, everything he had always maintained was shattered. Fong Ziwen originally didn't have a good impression of him, and now it was even worse. All of this was because of Muron Yu. This little bastard must die. Her hatred for Muron Yu, her killing intent, was about to materialize. Muron Yu directly ignored Li Diyu. His big hand pushed aside a guard that was surrounding Fong Ziwen and approached her. Then he pretended to be concerned and asked, "Dear miss, are you hurt? He didn't play rogue with you, right?" When she saw Muron Yu, Fong Ziwen, who was originally in a state of rage, miraculously calmed down and instantly calmed down. She looked at Muron Yu with a smile. "Muron Yu, is this how a guard should be? You ran away alone when there was danger. You even used your master to block the danger." Her voice was flat, as usual, but Muron Yu heard the anger in Fong Ziwen's voice. Muron Yu even felt that Fong Ziwen's anger had reached a certain level, which was why she was so calm. Once she exploded, the holy world might be shaken. At least, White Sun City might be shaken by her anger. Muron Yu's face immediately showed an innocent expression. "Miss, don't you see? I'm just a fake saint. Although that rogue wanted to kill me, I couldn't even stop him. Once I'm killed, his big hand will directly grab you. Then, you will be successfully played rogue." At the same time, Muron Yu stared at Fong Ziwen's towering breasts with an innocent expression. This little bastard must die. Li Diyu was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Because Muron Yu was staring at his breasts, only he had the right to look. Just as Li Diyu was pondering over how to kill Muron Yu, a round of applause rang out from the crowd. "Li Diyu, you've finally revealed your true colors, haven't you? Miss Fong, you can't be deceived by such a pervert and shameless person." A young man with a long sword on his back stepped through the air. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and his temperament was extremely elegant. Li Diyu's face darkened. Then he turned his head and fiercely looked at the young man. "Zhou Xiu Zhu, shut up. Am I that kind of person? Don't make unfounded accusations. Unfounded accusations? Young Master Li Diyu, you dare to say that I'm lying? Zhou Xiaozhu sneered. After saying this, he came in front of Feng Ziwen and very gentlemanly saluted. Xiaozhu greets Miss Zhou. Feng Ziwen had a good impression of this Zhou Xiaozhu. After all, he didn't have a bad reputation. However, she also knew that he was pursuing her. It was just that she didn't feel that way. Seeing the difference between Feng Ziwen's attitude towards Zhou Xiaozhu and her attitude towards him, Li Diyu was secretly angry. His killing intent towards Murong Yu became even stronger. He naturally attributed all of this to Murong Yu. Poor Murong Yu. Just by standing there, he'd become an existence that attracted hatred. Miss, the auction is about to start, Murong Yu said with a dark face. He really didn't want to see these people fighting here. It was simply a waste of time and life. Feng Ziwen fiercely glared at Murong Yu, then turned and walked towards the auction. Zhou Xiaozhu glanced at Murong Yu and said indifferently, "You are Murong Yu?" Murong Yu just nodded slightly and followed behind Feng Ziwen. A false Saint Guard? Interesting, it's really interesting. Zhou Xiaozhu muttered a few words to himself. Then he also followed him. With two of the 4 young masters of White Sun City as her escorts, no one dared to provoke Feng Ziwen. However, when they arrived outside the Blue Flame auction house, a young man and a young man came to greet them. After expressing their admiration for Feng Ziwen, they couldn't help but argue with Zhou Xiaozhu and the others. These 2 guys were Wu Guangde and Yuan Zhen of the 4 young masters of White Sun City. "You are Murong Yu? I want to challenge you." Yuan Zhen came to Murong Yu's side and said directly. Murong Yu was astonished and looked at Yuan Zhen as if he was looking at an idiot. "Did I hear wrongly? You, a great saint who is rumored to have reached the 9th level, actually want to challenge me, a false saint? Can you be any more shameless?" While Murong Yu was astonished, the others were also astonished. They all looked at Yuan Zhen with strange expressions. Even Li Diyu was the same. Although Li Diyu wanted to kill Murong Yu, he had already killed him. It was normal for the strong to kill the weak. However, it was truly shocking for a powerful person to challenge a weak person. Yuan Zhen's old face reddened, but he had already said it. How could he take it back? So he continued, "That's right, I challenge you. However, I will suppress my strength to the false saint realm. Otherwise, people will say that I am bullying the weak. I accept this challenge on his behalf," Feng Ziwen said before Murong Yu could speak. At the same time, she smiled at Murong Yu proudly. However, the way she looked at Murong Yu made the 4 princes uncomfortable, especially Li Diyu, who was bursting with killing intent. They all thought that Feng Ziwen and Murong Yu were flirting. Murong Yu's face darkened. Just as he was about to say something, Feng Ziwen's voice rang in his ears. "If you don't agree, I will immediately expel you from the city lord's mansion." At that time, Murong Yu was infuriated. What he hated the most in his life were people who threatened him. "Stinking brat, I'll teach you how to be cunning. This time, I want to see if your soul has really become a saint," Feng Ziwen muttered to herself. She wanted to see if Murong Yu's soul had become a saint for a long time, but she never had the chance. "I can challenge you, but I never fight without a prize." Murong Yu glanced at everyone and said indifferently. He didn't want to put on a free performance for others to see and be treated like a monkey show. "You want to challenge me? Sure, then bring out the prize." Murong Yu wanted to take this opportunity to make a fortune. Chapter 1222. Murong Yu had never feared anyone at the same level of cultivation. If Yuan Zhen hadn't been so powerful, Murong Yu would have been able to kill him even if he was only a saint, let alone defeat him. However, that would expose the fact that his soul had become a saint. Murong Yu didn't want to expose this trump card of his unless it was necessary. "Brat, you actually dare to accept my challenge? You could have refused. You're only a false saint. You wouldn't have lost face even if you refused." Yuan Zhen was rather surprised to see Murong Yu accept the challenge. However, he was soon infuriated by Murong Yu's next words. "You're no match for me at the same level of cultivation. However, if you want to fight me, you need to take out at least a high-quality saint artifact or a treasure of equivalent value. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about, Morongyu said indifferently. However, Yuan Zhen's face was livid with anger. An ant-like existence. If you don't dare accept my challenge, just say so. High-quality saint artifact? Why don't you say supreme quality saint artifact? Li Diyu took a few steps forward and looked at Morongyu mockingly. Do you have one? If you do, I don't mind fighting you. Morongyu glanced at Li Diyu indifferently and sneered. Li Diyu was immediately dumbfounded. He really didn't have a supreme quality saint artifact. In fact, he didn't even have a high-quality saint artifact, let alone a supreme quality saint artifact. White Sun City was only a small place. The Li clan was only a small clan in this small place. Although the Li clan was one of the 4 great clans of White Sun City, they were only a mediocre organization in the Saints world. How could they have a supreme quality saint artifact? Even if it was a high-grade saint artifact, it would still be considered a clan treasure in their clan. Although they were all outstanding young disciples of their clans, they didn't have the right to possess a high-quality saint artifact. Feng Ziwen only had 1 mid-grade saint artifact, so it was obvious. Yuan Zhen looked at Morongyu with a red face. He was extremely embarrassed. After all, he didn't have a high-grade saint artifact. However, he suddenly thought of something he possessed, so he immediately agreed. All right, a high-quality saint artifact. I'll fight you. However, for the sake of fairness, don't you also need a prize? Well, you're just a false saint. You don't need a high-grade saint artifact. You only need a mid-grade saint artifact. No problem. Morongyu immediately agreed. Then he turned to look at Feng Ziwen. Why are you looking at me? Feng Ziwen had a bad feeling. Didn't you promise on my behalf? Of course, you'll have to pay for the saint artifact and whatnot. Don't worry, you won't lose, Morongyu said indifferently. Feng Ziwen gnashed her teeth. She wanted nothing more than to send Morongyu flying with a slap. Shameless, too shameless. The others also looked at Morongyu with disdain, thinking that Morongyu was really shameless. All right, I'll pay for him with a mid-grade saint artifact. Feng Ziwen gritted her teeth and reluctantly agreed. She only had 1 mid-grade saint artifact. It was the bow that killed the purple sky fox a few days ago. Perhaps someone would say that Feng Ziwen's father, Feng Tianhe, was the city lord of White Sun City. Wasn't a few mid-grade saint artifacts a piece of cake? It was true that Feng Tianhe was the city lord of White Sun City. However, White Sun City was a city of the 9 in Holy Kingdom. Feng Tianhe was only receiving a salary from the 9 in Holy Kingdom. If he used his full strength, even a force like the Blood Rain Mountain wouldn't dare to touch him. However, in terms of wealth, he was far inferior to the Li family. Even if he filled his own pockets, he wouldn't have too much wealth. Since it's so lively, it shouldn't be a problem for me to join the fun, right? Li Diyu walked up and looked at Morongyu with a smile. This kind of challenge was the best opportunity to kill someone. He had wanted to kill Morongyu for a long time. As long as you can afford a high-grade saint artifact, it won't be a problem. However, I will only fight with people of the same cultivation level, Morongyu said indifferently. He didn't refuse anyone. Okay, then do we fight now or after the auction? Li Diyu couldn't wait to kill Morongyu. Feng Ziwen frowned slightly. After the auction. The auction is about to start. Okay, then we'll fight after the auction. Li Diyu, I'm warning you. I started first. You can't take it from me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Yuan Zhen glanced at Li Diyu and turned to leave. Li Diyu narrowed his eyes. A trace of killing intent flashed through his eyes. Remember to prepare a high-grade saint artifact. If I don't see one, I won't fight. Morongyu's voice spread far and wide. Then, he strode into the auction house with Feng Ziwen. The auction house was huge. There were over 1 million people inside. Furthermore, this was a large-scale auction held once every 10,000 years. By the time Morongyu and the others entered, the auction house was already packed with people. Morongyu frowned slightly. The environment was too noisy. He didn't like it. However, he knew that Feng Ziwen wouldn't be in the auction house. Let's go to the VIP room. As expected, Feng Ziwen led Yu and the others through a long corridor. "Oh, isn't this the super beauty of White Sun City, Miss Fong Ziwen?" As soon as they walked out of the corridor, a sweet and seductive voice sounded. A fragrant wind blew in their faces. Yu saw a beautiful woman in a tight red dress. She swayed her slim waist like a water snake and walked over to greet them. Her black hair flowed down her back like a waterfall. There was a faint smile on her face. As she walked, her breasts, which were only covered by 2 pieces of gauze, trembled slightly like waves. She was full of seduction. In addition to that, her exposed forearms were like congealed fat. Her entire body was filled with a charming seduction. Gulp, gulp. At this moment, you could even hear Fong Ziwen's guard swallowing their saliva. He didn't need to look to know that the guard was staring at the woman walking over. Fong Ziwen's face revealed a guarded expression as she looked at the person walking over. She was slightly unhappy. It was obvious that the two of them didn't get along. That's right. The two of them were equally beautiful. Even if they weren't enemies, they wouldn't be good friends. After all, 2 tigers couldn't live on the same mountain. Humph. Still so flirtatious. Fong Ziwen snorted, and Ai Shang smiled faintly. Her gaze swept past Fong Ziwen's face and landed on Yu's face. This young master must be the top quality servant of the city lord's mansion that everyone in White Sun City is talking about, right? Yu, let's go. Fong Ziwen obviously wasn't willing to stay with Ai Shang and wanted to leave quickly. Yu wanted to leave, but Ai Shang stepped to the side and blocked Yu's path. A fragrance wafted over and lingered in the air. "Young Master Morong, I'm Ai Shang, the manager of the Blue Flame Auction House's White Sun City branch. Why don't you be my guard? Our auction house's resources are much more abundant than the city lord's mansion." Ai Shang's breath smelled like orchids as she smiled at Yu. This made Yu very depressed. Since when did he become so popular? Not only did men look for him, but even women of such a level were looking for him. However, Ai Shang was naturally different from Li Diyu and the rest. Li Diyu and the rest all saw Yu as a love rival. Li Diyu even wanted to kill Yu. However, Yu wasn't afraid of such enemies on the surface. But this Ai Shang, Yu realized that he couldn't see through her at all. Even though they were so close, he couldn't read any of her thoughts. This woman's strength was beyond the great sage realm. A person of such a level took the initiative to look for him. It definitely wasn't anything good. Yu wasn't narcissistic enough to think that he really attracted this demon-like woman who he just met. Ai Shang, what do you mean? You dare to poach my man? Before Yu could speak, Fong Ziwen was enraged. "Young Mistress Fong, what do you mean by your man? Is he your man? I don't think so. You seem to be a virgin, right? If he's your man, I naturally won't poach him." Ai Shang smiled, but her words were bold and explicit. Fong Ziwen's face instantly turned red. She didn't know if it was from anger or embarrassment. "Yu is my servant." Fong Ziwen was enraged. "He's not your man. It doesn't matter whose servant he is. If you come to my place, I'll give you 10 times better treatment than the city lord residents. Yu, what do you think? Consider it?" Ai Shang was going to snatch him from Fong Ziwen. Yu didn't know what was going on, but the others knew what was going on. There were 2 great beauties in White Sun City, and they were naturally at loggerheads with each other. These 2 were born to be enemies. Not only did they compete in beauty, but they also competed in all aspects. Things like snatching people didn't happen rarely. Even Fong Ziwen's guards didn't find it strange. Fong Ziwen was instantly anxious. In terms of assets and resources, she really wasn't Ai Shang's opponent. She immediately turned and looked at Yu fiercely. "Yu, if you dare to betray the city lord residents." Humph. Fong Ziwen snorted coldly and was filled with a strong sense of threat. Being stared at by 2 great beauties. If it was an ordinary person, they would have already become complacent. However, Yu's face was filled with black lines. "The auction is about to start. Let's not waste time. Let's go to the auction." Yu changed the topic. "Humph. Don't change the topic. You must give us an answer today. Fong Ziwen and Ni Shang said in unison. Ask a question. Am I very handsome? Moron Yu looked at the two and suddenly asked a question that was out of the question. A little. So. The two women were startled at first. Then they sized up Moron Yu a few times before replying. Then that's it. I'm not handsome. I don't know what you see in me. If you need me to warm your bed, then forgive me for not selling myself. With that, Moron Yu walked past the two women and walked towards the VIP room. Chapter 1223. He is indeed a top-notch servant. Looking at Moron Yu's departing figure, Ai Shang's eyes flashed with a strange light, but her face was filled with a smile. Fong Ziwen, who was originally annoyed, smiled at this moment. If you don't mind, I can lend Moron Yu to you to warm your bed. Maybe something special will happen. And I think you guys are quite compatible. And Ai Shang wasn't angry. She smiled and turned to look at Fong Ziwen. Is what you said true? Then what if I take Moron Yu away? Don't you dare. In some aspects, Fong Ziwen wasn't Ai Shang's opponent. After glaring angrily at Ai Shang, she quickly fled. At this moment, Moron Yu had already stopped, because he didn't know which room Fong Ziwen was in, and he couldn't just barge into these VIP rooms. This was because the VIP rooms weren't only filled with powerful and influential people from White Sun City. There were also officials and nobles from other places. These people were very powerful and weren't people Moron Yu could provoke. Luckily, Moron Yu didn't have to wait for long before Fong Ziwen rushed over. Finally, they entered the VIP room in the middle. In a place like White Sun City, the City Lord's residence was undoubtedly the most powerful. They had such treatment. And this time, the City Lord of White Sun City, Fong Tianhe, didn't attend the auction. Therefore, this VIP room was naturally used by Fong Ziwen. The VIP room was luxuriously decorated. Other than the basic tables and chairs, there were all sorts of fruits and desserts. Moron Yu even found a few maids in the VIP room. Seeing these maids, Moron Yu couldn't help but glance at Fong Ziwen. It wasn't because these maids were too beautiful and could compete with Fong Ziwen. It was because he didn't find any maids by Fong Ziwen's side these few days. There were only a few guards. It was rare that young ladies didn't need maids to serve them these days. Fong Ziwen was probably one of them. As expected, after entering the VIP room, Fong Ziwen ordered the maids to leave. Fong Ziwen's other guards were loyal to their duties. After entering the VIP room, they stood around. However, Moron Yu didn't have the awareness of a guard or a servant. Instead, he sat down boldly, grabbed a piece of dessert, and stuffed it into his mouth. Seeing this, both Fong Ziwen and the guard's faces darkened. Was this guy really a servant? Sit. Why are you looking at me? The auction is about to begin. Seeing Fong Ziwen looking at him with a dark face, Moron Yu didn't have any awareness. Instead, he acted like a host and asked Fong Ziwen to sit down. What fruit is that? It looks pretty. Bring it over for me. After Fong Ziwen sat down, Moron Yu ordered Fong Ziwen to bring over a strangely shaped fruit. Fong Ziwen's guards were speechless. Did this guy really worship me? Even the young miss of the City Lord's mansion was being ordered around. What made their jaws drop to the ground was that Fong Ziwen didn't hesitate to hand over the strange fruit. It's over, it's over. The guards secretly wailed in their hearts. Could it be that the young miss has really fallen in love with this guy? This is the first time I've seen the young miss so docile. The taste isn't bad. Moron Yu took a bite of the fruit and praised at the same time. However, he didn't say a single word of thanks. Moron Yu, how dare you? Fong Ziwen suddenly shouted coldly. She angrily glared at Moron Yu. She seemed to have just reacted. Wasn't Moron Yu his bodyguard and retainer? How was it that he had become the master and she had become the maid? The auction is about to begin. Moron Yu looked at the VIP room and said, directly ignoring Fong Ziwen. This made Fong Ziwen very angry, but she couldn't vent her anger. If she cursed at Moron Yu, wouldn't she become a shrew? The VIP room faced the stage in front of the hall. Because it was specially set up, the people in the VIP room could see everything outside. However, the people outside couldn't see inside the VIP room. Even their divine sense couldn't enter. At this moment, on the high platform, a tall and sexy woman dressed in revealing clothes like a seductress walked out while swaying her slender waist. The moment this seductive woman appeared, there were waves of wolf howls in the hall. It's actually her? I didn't expect her to personally host the auction. Murong Yu's eyes flashed with surprise. At the same time, he couldn't help but whisper, don't you men like this kind of coquettish woman the most? The beauty effect, Fong Ziwen said with some disdain, because that woman was the manager of the Blue Flame Auction House's White Sun City branch, Enai Shang. Murong Yu nodded. For someone like Enai Shang, she definitely had a lot of suitors. As long as she stood on the stage and casually took out a trashy saint weapon, there would probably be people buying it at a high price. Hello, everyone. I believe many of you know me. However, there are still many new friends here. Let me introduce myself. I'm Enai Shang, the manager of the auction house. Today's auction will be hosted by me. Before he could finish his sentence, howls could be heard coming from the hall. These guys are all lustful. Murong Yu felt some disdain in his heart. Although Enai Shang was a seductive woman and even made Murong Yu feel a little stunned. However, her beauty had no effect on him, because none of the women in his family were inferior to her. Of course, none of them were as coquettish as she was. After a brief introduction of the rules of the auction officially began. The first item was only an ordinary low-grade saint weapon, but it was bought at a high price. In the Holy World, low-grade saint weapons were the most common saint weapons. However, not everyone had one. 1 million low-grade saint crystals could buy an ordinary low-grade saint weapon. However, the low-grade saint weapon in this auction house was sold at a high price of 5 million saint crystals. The temptation of a beautiful woman was obvious. After the low-grade saint weapon, there was a saint-grade saint pill and some heaven and earth treasures. Murong Yu only took a look at the beginning before he calmed his mind and went to cultivate in the Hichu Luo Shu. The items being auctioned were of no use to him. The most important thing was that he didn't have the money to bid. Right now, he only had a little over 1,000 different grade saint crystals and tens of thousands of low-grade saint crystals. These saint crystals were given to him by Fong Ziwen for cultivation. In this auction house that could easily sell for hundreds of thousands or millions of saint crystals, Murong Yu's tens of thousands of saint crystals were useless. As for Fong Ziwen, it seemed that there was nothing she liked in the auction house, so she didn't make a move. Someone in the other VIP rooms made a move. Next, we're going to auction a top-grade saint weapon. After auctioning off an ordinary heaven and earth treasure, Enai Shang suddenly said something shocking. In an instant, everyone was shocked. Then, the hall and even the VIP rooms were in an uproar, because they didn't know that there was a top-grade saint weapon being auctioned this time. A saint weapon of this level almost didn't exist in White Sun City. After all, in the 4 great clans, high-grade saint weapons were at the level of clan guarding treasures, let alone a top-grade saint weapon. Miss Enai Shang, why didn't you inform us in advance that you were going to auction a top-grade saint weapon? This is too hasty. We didn't make enough preparations. A loud voice came from a VIP room. Yes, Miss Enai Shang, are you going to auction this treasure later? Allow us to prepare a little more. Everyone agreed one after another, because they all knew how precious a top-grade saint weapon was. How much was a top-grade saint weapon worth? The people of White Sun City didn't know the exact price. However, they also knew that even if they gathered all the assets of the 4 great clans, they might not be able to afford it. As a result, the local tyrants of White Sun City fell silent. They couldn't understand why the auction house would auction a saint weapon of this level in a small place like theirs. Even if the value wasn't high and they were lucky enough to obtain it, it was definitely not a good thing. On the contrary, it was more likely that their clans would be exterminated because of this top-grade saint weapon. This kind of killing and snatching of treasures happened every day. Treasures aroused the envy of others. Everyone in White Sun City fell silent, and those who didn't were the outsiders. Those who spoke just now weren't natives of White Sun City, but guests from other places. Everyone calmed down. and Ai Shang's pleasant voice came from afar when she saw that those people were anxious. Instantly, the entire auction house quietened down. As she spoke, a guard of the auction house walked up with a small black bell that didn't look impressive. "This is that top-grade saint weapon." When they saw this small black bell, someone in the auction house couldn't help but snicker. As long as it was a saint artifact, it would emit a slight fluctuation. The higher the grade, the more powerful the fluctuation. For a top-grade saint weapon, even if it was just an invisible fluctuation, it wasn't something that an ordinary saint could get close to. However, the fluctuation emitted by the small bell in the guard's hand wasn't even comparable to an ordinary low-grade saint weapon. And Ai Shang's face couldn't help but turn red when she heard everyone snicker. She had no choice. This saint weapon didn't belong to the Blue Flame auction house, but to a guest, so she had to auction it. The saint weapon is called the Astral Wind Secret Light Bell. After the confirmation of our auction house's appraiser, it's indeed a top-grade saint weapon. However, it's a sealed saint weapon. However, our auction house can't undo the seal on it. As soon as Ai Shang said that, the entire auction house was in an uproar. The Blue Flame auction house was one of the top auction houses in the Holy World. They were all over the human race, the demon race, and the sacred race. They had countless experts, but even they couldn't undo the seal on a top-grade saint weapon. Wasn't it just a top-grade saint weapon? Was a seal really that powerful? Or was it not a top-grade saint weapon, but a peerless or even a saint weapon? If it was a saint-grade sacred artifact, some people became excited. Chapter 1224. Thinking that it might be a saint-grade saint artifact, some people were excited, but many people remained calm. If even Blue Flame Auction House couldn't break the seal, even if it was really a saint-grade saint artifact, it would be useless even if it was given to them. If one of the top auction houses in the Holy World couldn't do it, could they? And if they couldn't break the seal, no matter how powerful they would only be a pile of scrap metal. Therefore, before Ai Shang finished speaking, the entire auction house's enthusiasm had already dissipated. What was left was some roaring laughter. "Miss Ai Shang, I'll buy your supreme grade saint artifact for 1 low-grade saint crystal." Laughter spread out. "I'll give Miss Ai Shang some face and bid for it with 10 low-grade saint crystals. 100 will do." Everyone roared with laughter, and Ai Shang also looked embarrassed. No matter how extravagant she was, she couldn't hide the fact that this so-called supreme grade saint artifact was just a pile of scrap metal. If the seal can be broken, then the power of a supreme grade saint artifact will be restored. The starting price is 100,000 low-grade saint crystals. That was the sound of a gasp. 100,000 low-grade saint crystals for this pile of scrap metal? Was this a joke? For a moment, everyone fell silent. Then they reacted, but no one shouted a price. They just roared with laughter. "Young master, you want to bid for this saint artifact?" Moron Yu originally only took a glance at that Astral Wind Secret Light Bell. All he did was take a look at it. Because he didn't have the money to bid, he continued to cultivate. However, Hichu's voice appeared in his mind. "Bid for that pile of scrap metal?" Moron Yu asked in surprise. Could Hichu be able to break the seal of that saint artifact? If that was the case, then he would have profited. Scrap metal? Even if I can't break the seal, it will be greatly beneficial to you. It contains an extremely large amount of power, Hichu explained. Although he didn't know what benefits the large amount of power would bring him, Moron Yu decided to bid for this so-called supreme grade saint artifact in the end. But before that, he needed to borrow money from Fong Ziwen. "Young Lady Fong, please lend me 200,000 low-rank saint crystals." Moron Yu opened his eyes again and said to Fong Ziwen. Fong Ziwen looked at Moron Yu in surprise. "You want to auction this top-grade saint artifact?" Moron Yu didn't reply, neither agreeing nor disagreeing. Fong Ziwen rolled her eyes. "Let's not talk about whether or not this saint artifact is a top-grade saint artifact. Even if it is, you can't undo the seal. Using 100,000 saint crystals to buy a pile of scrap iron is too wasteful. Just lend me some saint crystals. Are you going to lend me some or not?" Moron Yu rolled his eyes. "It will be deducted from your salary." Fong Ziwen didn't understand why Murong insisted on bidding for this piece of scrap metal, but she still threw out 200,000 low-rank St. crystals to Murong. Murong directly took it and didn't thank her. He just looked at the auction house outside. The high price of 100,000 low-rank St. crystals for a pile of scrap metal instantly made the whole auction house go silent. Even though Anai Shang was like a vixen, trying her best, no one called out a price. Even if she had many suitors, 100,000 low-rank St. crystals was still a huge sum for them. After all, White Sun City was just a small place. These playboys usually spent money like water. How could they have so much extra money? I'll call out one more time. If it still can't be sold, then it can only be passed, Anai Shang thought gloomily. This was the first time an item had been passed since she was in charge of the auction. But no matter what she said, no one would buy it. Young lady Anai Shang, your Blue Flame auction house said that this saint artifact was sealed and not damaged. Just as Anai Shang was about to announce that this saint artifact was passed, a faint voice came from the VIP room. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Yes, what if this was just a damaged saint artifact? Before this, they had never thought that this was a damaged saint artifact, because they all chose to believe in the Blue Flame auction house. We all know the strength of the Blue Flame auction house. If it's really a seal, I don't believe that you can't remove the seal. If that is the case, there is only one possibility. This sacred artifact is a damaged or destroyed sacred artifact. It is simply worthless. The voice rang out again. Anai Shang was also stunned. She also didn't suspect that this was a damaged saint artifact. Anai Shang's smile stiffened, and she looked at the VIP room awkwardly. She already recognized who the voice belonged to, the top-notch servant Murong. It was Murong who spoke just now. In the VIP room, Fong Ziwen smiled when she felt Anai Shang's murderous gaze. She didn't know if it was because of Murong's action or because of Anai Shang's awkward look. A pile of scrap metal actually dares to sell for 100,000 low-rank St. crystals. That's crazy. Everyone in the auction house's hall was discussing. They were all saying that the auction house had gone crazy for money. However, Murong spoke again at this time. Although this is just a pile of scrap metal, since Miss Anai Shang is hosting it, I believe that everyone doesn't want this saint artifact to go unsold. So if it's 10,000 low-rank St. crystals, I'll bid for it. Hua. Hearing this, the people in the auction house burst into laughter. It was the first time they met someone who could actually bargain for an item that was being auctioned. While laughing, they looked at Anai Shang, wondering how she would deal with it. Anai Shang smiled when she heard Murong's words. Since that's the case, the starting price of this top-grade saint artifact will be lowered to 10,000 low-rank saint crystals. This is a top-grade saint artifact. Who else wants to bid for it? It actually lowered the price. Everyone was surprised. However, no one made a bid. A top-grade saint artifact of 10,000 low-rank saint crystals. Is there no one else who wants to bid? Anai Shang tried to persuade everyone to bid. However, no one bid, even if it was only 1,000 low-rank saint crystals. This made Murong very surprised. Why didn't Anai Shang's suitors take the opportunity to bid to win Anai Shang's favor? In the end, Murong won this so-called top-grade saint crystal for 10,000 low-rank saint crystals. Soon, this saint artifact was delivered to Murong. After paying 10,000 low-rank saint crystals, this so-called top-grade saint artifact belonged to Murong. Without waiting for Fong Ziwen to speak, Murong directly kept this saint artifact in the Hichu Luoshu world. During this process, he even heard Hichu heave a sigh of relief. Could this really be a saint-grade saint artifact? Murong couldn't help but be curious. While he too heaved a sigh of relief, Anai Shang, who was hosting the next auction item, also heaved a sigh of relief. This so-called saint artifact was requested by a guest. The starting price was 100,000 low-rank saint crystals. The reason why she lowered the price was that she didn't want to have an item that didn't get sold. Because as a good auctioneer, it was impossible for there to be an item that didn't get sold. Once there was an item that didn't get sold, it would be an unerasable stain in an auctioneer's career. As for the customer service's loss, she would use her own private money to pay for it after the auction. As for Murong, who had auctioned it off, she was secretly grateful to him. Although he lowered the price, at least she wouldn't lose the item. Next, the auction continued. Meanwhile, in the VIP lounge, Fong Ziwen looked at Murongyu with some displeasure. Stingy brat. Murongyu closed his eyes and couldn't be bothered with Fong Ziwen. The large-scale auction that was held once every 10,000 years had a lot of items being auctioned. After the initial warm-up, the auction house gradually went crazy. At this moment, Murongyu finally understood why no one fought with him for that saint artifact. It was because those rich kids had kept their saint crystals for now. With the help of those idiots, the auction items were sold at high price one by one. There were some rare treasures among them. However, there weren't any items on the level of a supreme saint artifact. It wasn't that the Blue Flame auction house didn't have such a saint artifact, but it wouldn't be auctioned in a small place like White Sun City. Next, we're going to auction a cultivation technique, an incomplete cultivation technique. It's said that this cultivation technique can only be cultivated by a person whose soul has become a saint. While N.I. Shang was speaking, a maid had already walked onto the auction stage with a paper book on a tray. However, that book was obviously incomplete because there were only a few pages. Hearing N.I. Shang's words, Murongyu, who was cultivating with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the auction stage below. Finally, he looked at the few pages of the book. Fong Ziwen immediately noticed this scene. However, she was secretly observing Murongyu without batting an eyelid. Murongyu extended his divine thought over immediately. During this process, he encountered many people's divine thought. These people had the same goal as him, which was to see if the book was real. However, to their disappointment, there was a restriction on the book's surface. It prevented their divine thought from entering. Moreover, they couldn't see the contents of the book at all. They couldn't verify its authenticity. In fact, even if they saw it, they wouldn't know if it was real or fake. Because there were too few people whose soul had become a saint, it was almost a legendary existence. I guarantee on the reputation of the Blue Flame auction house that this is indeed a cultivation technique for a person whose soul has become a saint in one step. However, there are only a few pages and they're incomplete, N.I. Shang said again. Hichu, why are they auctioning these pages of the cultivation technique? If it's really a soul cultivation technique, wouldn't they keep it for their own use? Murongyu was puzzled and communicated with Hichu. I'm sure they already have a backup. Moreover, it might just be a bait to lure out the person whose soul has become a saint, Hichu analyzed. Murongyu frowned. If that's the case, doesn't that mean we can't bid for it? Murongyu was a little depressed. Even if it was just a little bit of that cultivation technique, he could find the trick to cultivating it. Seeing that he couldn't bid for it indeed made him depressed. However, he calmed down after thinking that he didn't have the ability to bid for it. Chapter 1225. If he didn't have the money to bid, even if he had the money, he couldn't bid. Otherwise, who knew what kind of trouble he would encounter? Thus, Murongyu's excited heart quickly calmed down. Seeing Murongyu calming down so quickly, Fong Ziwen, who was standing beside him, was a little surprised. This was because she had already caught Murongyu's agitated state at the beginning. At that time, she was vaguely sure that Murongyu's soul had become a saint. But now, she wasn't sure. This guy isn't interested? Fong Ziwen was a bit surprised. Is it because he doesn't have the money? Yes. Where does he have the money? He definitely can't afford to bid for it. Thinking of this, Fong Ziwen suddenly laughed. Murongyu, you're not interested in the soul cultivation method? If you want, I can lend you the money to bid for it. Murongyu indifferently glanced at Fong Ziwen and faintly smiled. My soul isn't a saint. What do I need these things for? Besides, even if my soul is a saint, it's useless. Who knows what's on those pages? Don't lose more than you gain. Who said that a person with a saint body can't also have a saint soul? Perhaps your soul can become a saint? Then you'll be powerful. Fong Ziwen said in a very tempting manner. Murongyu wasn't moved and indifferently looked at Fong Ziwen. I say, young Miss Fong, why are you so good to me? If you want it, you can bid for it. When the time comes, I can borrow your light to see how to cultivate the soul." After pausing, he continued, "Sometimes I really wonder if you've fallen in love with me. Otherwise, why are you so good to me?" Hearing this, Feng Ziwen was speechless. She only felt that Murong Yu was too narcissistic and infuriating. "I'm not interested in this soul cultivation method. After the auction, I still have to accept challenges. If there's nothing important, don't disturb me." While speaking, Murong Yu closed his eyes again. Feng Ziwen was about to die from anger. How could there be such an arrogant guard? Feng Ziwen's guards were even more speechless. If it were them, they would have probably been chased out long ago, right? Murong Yu couldn't even deal with Feng Ziwen. Different people have different fates. Murong Yu wasn't interested in these few pages of soul cultivation techniques, but there were many people who were interested in them. In the end, it was auctioned off for a sky-high price. It was directly traded with a saint bloodline. Such a price left the various forces in White Sun City speechless. That was because the value of those few pages was something that even the entire White Sun City could not afford. That incomplete cultivation method was bought by an external force. After this craze, there were no more treasures of this level. However, there was no lack of rare items. One item after another was sold at a high price. During this process, Feng Ziwen also bid several times and won several items. The auction lasted for an entire day before it finally ended. By the time Murong Yu woke up from his cultivation, the auction had already ended and the people in the hall had almost all left. However, when Murong Yu appeared at the entrance of the auction house, Li Diyu and the others were already waiting for him. "Everyone, could it be that you can't wait to give me a high-grade saint artifact?" When he saw Li Diyu and the others, Murong Yu revealed a brilliant smile and an incomparably relaxed expression. It was as if he didn't care about Li Diyu and the others at all. In fact, he only treated them as gift givers. "Enough nonsense. Leave the city immediately." Li Diyu stepped forward, his eyes filled with disdain as he looked at Murong Yu. In his eyes, Murong Yu was already a dead man. He would never allow a dead man to continue standing in front of him. "Li Diyu, everything is first come, first served. Why don't you and I fight first?" Yuan Zhen took a few steps forward unhappily and looked at Li Diyu with an unfriendly expression. Murong Yu looked impatient. "All right, cut the crap. I want to see the high-grade saint artifact in your hands. Otherwise, you can go back to where you came from." "Well said." Li Diyu smiled faintly and grabbed at the air. The next moment, a mirror emitting a faint light appeared in his hand. 100 refined, dim light mirror, high-grade saint artifact, Li Diyu said proudly. He had obtained this high-grade saint artifact by accident. Its power was extremely terrifying, and it was his personal saint artifact. This is a high-grade saint artifact. The aura it emits is not even comparable to a mid-grade saint artifact. Li Diyu, don't joke around. Before Murong Yu could speak, Yuan Zhen, who was opposite Li Diyu, sneered. "Idiot, what do you know? The aura of the 100 refined dim light mirror is not strong. It's not even powerful. However, it has a special function. It's a soul saint artifact. If you don't believe me, you can come and try it." Li Diyu looked at Yuan Zhen as if he was looking at a bumpkin. His face was full of mockery. As he spoke, Li Diyu injected a trace of energy into the 100 refined dim light mirror. Suddenly, the faint light from the mirror began to emit. At this moment, everyone's soul could not help but tremble. A dangerous aura shrouded their hearts. Everyone's heart trembled, and a look of surprise flashed across their eyes. Although the dangerous aura only lasted for a moment, the 100 refined dim light mirror was indeed a soul saint artifact. It was a saint artifact that specialized in attacking souls. Although he didn't know exactly how powerful it was, even if it wasn't that powerful, it was still extremely precious. After all, if this saint artifact was used in battle, it would immediately affect the enemy's soul. Even if it was only for a moment, it was enough to turn the tide of the battle. Seeing everyone's expression, Li Diyu was very pleased. A bright smile appeared on his face. At the same time, he glanced at Yuan Zhen with a look of disdain. Yuan Zhen was in a bad mood. He flipped his hand, and in the next moment, an embroidery needle appeared in his hand. Ha ha ha! When they saw the embroidery needle, everyone present could not help but burst into laughter. The ones who laughed the loudest were Li Diyu, Zhou Xiuzhu, and Wu Guangda. Even Feng Ziwen could not help but chuckle. Yuan Zhan's old face turned red. A grown man like him holding an embroidery needle. It really made him feel embarrassed. However, this was not an embroidery needle, but a high-grade saint artifact. Yuan Zhan, when did you change your gender? Are you preparing to embroider? The one who spoke was not Li Diyu, but Yuan Zhan's sworn enemy, Zhou Xiuzhu. At this moment, Zhou Xiuzhu was laughing so hard that his face was red. A bunch of bumpkins. It's not wrong to say that you are ignorant. Is this an embroidery needle? Let me tell you, this needle is called the Dragonbone Flame Needle. It was refined from the bones of a dragon. As he spoke, Yuan Zhan poured his energy into the Dragonbone Flame Needle. Bang! The Dragonbone Flame Needle instantly grew, like a pillar supporting the heavens. Its whole body emitted green flames. An incomparably vast draconic might seeped out of its body and swept out in all directions like a flood. At this moment, everyone felt as if their souls were being pierced by millions of needles. The Dragonbone Flame Needle is specialized in targeting the soul. It is much stronger than your 100 refined dim light mirror. However, it has a flaw. After saying this, Yuan Zhan's expression became somewhat awkward. What flaw? Moronyu narrowed his eyes and asked. The Dragonbone Flame Needle requires a huge amount of energy to activate. Even a 9th step Great Sage can only activate the Dragonbone Flame Needle for 2 breaths of time. Moronyu looked at Yuan Zhan with a surprised expression. Was this guy an honest person? Or an idiot? Didn't he just expose the flaw of the Dragonbone Flame Needle? In the future, when he used the Dragonbone Flame Needle, others would be prepared. If he wasn't an idiot, then he must have other powerful sacred weapons on him. The so-called 4 princes are not simple, Moronyu muttered to himself. All right, since both of us have high-grade sacred weapons, shouldn't we begin? Li Diyu said impatiently, looking at Moronyu with eyes full of killing intent. Not yet, Moronyu said in a low voice. Little bastard, are you going back on your word? Li Diyu's face darkened, and his killing intent surged. If Moronyu went back on his word, he'd definitely kill him on the spot. Moronyu looked at Li Diyu with disdain. Why are you in such a hurry to give me a sacred weapon? However, I don't believe you. Therefore, I want a notary, so that you won't go back on your word when you lose. I will lose. You little bastard can defeat me. Li Diyu was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He was completely infuriated by Moronyu. Moronyu was too lazy to pay attention to him. Instead, he turned to look at Feng Ziwen. I wonder if the city lord can be the notary? I really don't trust this guy's character. Feng Ziwen nodded. I also don't trust him. I will immediately contact my father. Hearing Feng Ziwen's words, Li Diyu, who was already furious, almost coughed up blood. Yuan Zhan and the others were secretly laughing in their hearts. The more Feng Ziwen acted like this, the less of a threat Li Diyu was to them. No need. I will be your notary. Just as Feng Ziwen was about to contact Feng Tianhe, a voice sounded in everyone's ears. However, the person didn't appear. All right, the city lord has also appeared. Little bastard, what else do you have to say? If you don't have any last words, then hurry up and come out to die. As he spoke, Li Diyu had already soared into the sky, flying out of the city. Moronyu smiled faintly and also soared into the sky. I have never seen someone who thought it was too slow to give away a treasure. You have broadened my horizons. Little bastard, if I don't kill you, I swear I am not human. Li Diyu gnashed his teeth, and his entire body was filled with killing intent. He even had the urge to immediately kill Moronyu. Chapter 1226. Outside White Sun City, countless people had gathered together. In front of the crowd, 3 young men were facing each other with intense battle intent and killing intent. The 3 of them were Moronyu, Yuan Zhan, and Li Diyu. Among them, Yuan Jun and Murong Yu only had monstrous battle intent. Li Diyu, on the other hand, was filled with murderous intent. He wanted to kill Murong Yu. At this moment, Yuan Jun and Li Diyu were still arguing about who should go first. Murong Yu, who was not far from them, finally lost his patience. "Both of you, come at me together." "Both of you?" Upon hearing Murong Yu's words, the surrounding crowd was instantly shocked. They all looked at Murong Yu in surprise, as if they were looking at an idiot. Did Murong Yu really have the strength, or was he just ignorant and arrogant? This was the thought in everyone's mind. However, unlike the shocked crowd, Yuan Jun and Li Diyu, who were both involved, were instantly furious. This was because Murong Yu was clearly looking down on them. This was an insult to them. "Li Diyu, I know you want to kill him. However, if you kill him, I can't continue. Therefore, I have to make the first move. After I defeat him, he can still fight with you," Yuan Jun suddenly said to Li Diyu through voice transmission. To Yuan Jun, Murong Yu was just a stranger. His life and death had nothing to do with him. He only wanted to defeat Murong Yu fair and square. Although it was a little embarrassing for him, a great saint, to deal with a false saint. However, since he had already lost face, he could only continue. "All right, then let that little bastard live a little longer." Li Diyu thought for a moment and finally agreed. After all, if they continued to argue like this, who knew when they would reach a conclusion? As for both of them attacking at the same time, that was impossible. It would be an insult to them. "Murong Yu, you're too arrogant. Yuan Jun, will teach you a lesson first." Yuan Jun roared and stepped forward. During this process, the aura on his body rapidly weakened. It was obvious that he had already sealed his realm. "Wait a moment," Murong Yu suddenly shouted. Then, while Yuan Jun frowned slightly, Murong Yu bowed slightly in the direction of White Sun City and said loudly, "City Lord, please make a move to seal Feng Yun and Li Diyu's realms. I really don't trust them." Hearing this, Yuan Jun and Li Diyu were so angry that smoke almost came out of their noses. Could it be that this little bastard still thought that they were no match for him, even if they sealed their realms? Did he need to use the strength of a great saint? However, it was one thing to be fuming Feng. However, they did not act. After all, Feng Yun's realm side. Before Murong Yu could finish his sentence, a wave of energy shot out from White Sun City and landed on Yuan Jun and Li Diyu. Suddenly, their realms were sealed to the false sacred realm by Feng Tianhe. In this way, even someone of the same realm as Feng Tianhe would not be able to remove the seal on them in a short time. In other words, they could fight Murong Yu with the strength of a false saint. Who do you think will win? The onlookers discussed animatedly. Do you still need to ask? It must be Yuan Jun and Li Diyu. Even if they sealed their realms, they're still great saints. They're much stronger than false saints. I feel that Murong Yu might be able to win. Otherwise, how would he dare to accept the challenge? Sure, you don't know, do you? He was forced to accept it, because it was Miss Feng who had accepted it for him. I see. Then Murong Yu will definitely lose. At first, some people thought that Murong Yu would win. However, after a while, no one thought that he would win. Perhaps only Feng Ziwen, who believed that Murong Yu's soul sage, thought that Murong Yu would win. "I'm coming." Yuan Jun roared and took a step forward. His body suddenly soared into the air and turned into a stream of light, pouncing toward Murong Yu. During this process, his divine fist was invincible. His fist rapidly shot out, locked onto Murong Yu's head, and went for the kill. "Good timing. I want to see what you can do after you've sealed your realm." Murong Yu also roared. He took a step forward and also pounced toward Yuan Jun. Their realms and physical bodies were the same. Murong Yu did not touch anyone at all. Therefore, the two of them chose to fight hand-to-hand from the beginning. Bang! Bang! In the void, the two fists violently collided. An earth-shattering sound erupted. A terrifying shockwave formed in an instant and then swept out in all directions. The air was torn apart and crushed. As for Murong Yu and Li Wuyo, they were sent flying by the terrifying impact. After a single strike, the two of them were evenly matched. Boom! 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 There were no magic treasures or sacred weapons clashing. There was also no violent impact. The collision between the two of them was purely a physical collision. Thus, the onlookers saw this scene. The two of them kept fighting in close combat, punches and palms constantly bombarding each other's bodies. Then, they were constantly sent flying by each other. However, when they stabilized their bodies, they pounced on each other again. There was no fighting style. It was like a fight between villagers. Barbarians. Zhou Zhu frowned slightly and said with some disdain, "This kid is indeed a country bumpkin. He doesn't have any moves, not to mention his rich combat experience. Yuan Zhen is also an idiot. If it were me, I would have already executed a combat technique to kill him." Li Diyu's face was filled with disdain as he watched the exchange between Murong Yu and Yuan Zhen. Little did he know that Yuan Zhen was not Li Diyu. This was because he felt that he had an unfair advantage. Moreover, Murong Yu wanted to fight hand-to-hand from the beginning. He wanted to determine the winner with his physical body. Yuan Zhen could only accompany him. He wanted to defeat Murong Yu with his physical body. Only then would it be fair. However, he did not know that he had fallen into Murong Yu's trap. If it were a life-and-death battle or some other occasion, Murong Yu would definitely use all his means. He would use all his combat skills, souls, sacred weapons, and the like in order to kill his opponent. However, Yuan Zhen was not his enemy. This was because he did not feel any killing intent from Yuan Zhen. Moreover, he was not willing to reveal his true strength. Bang! Bang! Murong Yu's fist landed directly on Yuan Zhen's chest. The enormous force behind the punch caused a ghastly wound to appear on his chest, causing blood to spurt out. While Yuan Zhen was sent flying, his leg lashed out at Murong Yu's waist. A huge force erupted and almost cut Murong Yu in half. Although Murong Yu was not cut in half, his waist was still crushed by the impact. His clothes were torn to shreds. Looking from afar, Murong Yu and Yuan Zhen's clothes were torn to shreds. Their bodies were covered with ghastly wounds that were so deep that their bones could be seen. They looked like they were made of blood. In the beginning, after the wounds appeared on their bodies, they were quickly healed. However, after half a day, more and more wounds appeared on their bodies. This was because they did not have much energy left to heal their wounds. Of course, this could be an act by both parties. Murong Yu did not know what was going on with Yuan Zhen. However, he was sure that the latter was faking it. A battle of this intensity was no threat to him. The power in his body was still enormous. He had not consumed any of it. Moreover, the wounds on his body could be healed with the power of life if he wanted to. However, he could not use the power of life to heal them, because that appearance was simply too shocking. Yuan Zhen, I told you that you are no match for me. Murong Yu laughed and charged forward again. Yuan Zhen's eyes flashed with a cold light. He was shocked by Murong Yu's tenacity. Even if it was just a physical fight, it would still consume a lot of energy. Previously, he had used up most of his energy to heal his wounds. After his cultivation level was sealed, the amount of energy he recovered was not proportional to the amount of energy he consumed. His energy was being consumed quickly. He had already used up more than half of it. However, looking at Murong Yu, although he did not seem to have much energy left, his breathing was long and drawn out. What the hell? Could it be that his soul is not a sage? Feng Ziwen, who was watching the battle from the side, was a little depressed. This was because Murong Yu had already gained the upper hand and was forcing Yuan Zhen to retreat. Yuan Zhen was very depressed. He was no match for Murong Yu in terms of physical strength. He was a great sage, but he was no match for a false sage. How could he endure this? Of course, he believed that he could defeat Murong Yu as long as he took out his sacred weapon and used all kinds of combat skills. However, that was not his style. He had already lost. Stop, I admit defeat. Finally, he was sent flying by Murong Yu's punch again. He immediately shouted to stop and admitted defeat. Are you kidding me? Yuan Zhen actually admitted defeat? He didn't even use any combat skills. Seeing Yuan Zhen admit defeat, the onlookers were very surprised. They did not understand why Yuan Zhen wanted to outnumber him. However, Some people nodded inwardly. Yuan Jun was a straightforward and upright person. He was not afraid of losing face. He was brave enough to admit the truth. Most importantly, he did not want to take advantage of Murongyu. Why? This was Murongyu's question to Yuan Jun. I am a great sage, and you are only a false sage. If you can defeat me in terms of physical strength, then I will admit defeat. Pausing for a moment, Yuan Jun sized up Murongyu before continuing. If I'm not mistaken, your injuries aren't as serious as they seem. If we continue fighting, I'll lose even more miserably. He was able to let go of his losses. At this moment, Murongyu suddenly liked this Yuan Jun a little. Murongyu, you're a good person. If you can survive Li Diyu's attack, I will definitely make friends with you. Yuan Jun laughed, then turned around and left. However, he only took one step before stopping again. By the way, this flaming dragon bone needle is yours. As he spoke, he threw the high-grade sacred weapon, the flaming dragon bone needle, to Murongyu. However, the moment he let go, Murongyu saw the muscles on his face twitching. Clearly, he was in great pain. Chapter 12:27. Yuan Jun had lost to Murongyu, a false saint, just like that. He'd even lost a high-grade saint artifact. Everyone was shocked, but at the same time, they also admired Yuan Jun. After all, he'd admitted defeat of his own accord. Moreover, everyone had heard what he'd said to Murongyu clearly. Yuan Jun was a real man. Everyone had the same thought in their minds. Even Zhou Xiuzhu, Wu Guangde, and the others viewed Yuan Jun in a new light. Putting themselves in his shoes, if they'd been in his shoes, would they have been as magnanimous as Yuan Jun? No one knew. Li Diyu sneered in his heart. If it had been him, he wouldn't have cared whether it was fair or not. He'd kill Murongyu first. Thus, when Li Diyu returned, he slowly stepped forward and approached Murongyu. He actually planned to make a move now. Wait, it wasn't Murongyu who'd shouted, but Feng Ziwen. At that moment, Feng Ziwen also stepped forward and looked at Li Diyu with disdain. You want to make a move now? Shouldn't it be my turn after Yuan Jun? Li Diyu looked at Feng Ziwen with some surprise, his face full of confusion. Feng Ziwen was furious. This Li Diyu was really too shameless. He clearly knew what Feng Ziwen meant. You have a nerve to make a move now? Don't you see that he's seriously injured? You're a great saint. Can you be any more shameless? A cold, killing intent flashed through the depths of Li Diyu's eyes. However, he pretended to be enlightened. Aya, look at me. I'm actually so muddle-headed. I didn't even consider that Murongyu was seriously injured. How about this? I'll give you enough time to heal, so you won't say that I'm unfair. Shameless. Hearing Li Diyu's words, the onlookers despised him in their hearts. They could all see that Murongyu was seriously injured. Li Diyu wasn't blind, so it was impossible for him not to see it. He just wanted to take the opportunity to kill Murongyu. Or rather, after seeing Yuan Jun defeated, he was afraid that Yuan Jun was no match for Murongyu. Therefore, he took advantage of the fact that he was still heavily injured to quickly kill him. Feng Ziwen walked in front of Murongyu and threw out 2 bottles of pills. Swallow these pills. They can help you quickly recover your strength and body. Murongyu wasn't polite either. After receiving the pills, he directly poured them into his mouth, although he didn't need to eat these pills. However, if he used the power of life to heal his injuries, it would arouse the suspicions of many people. The power of the medicinal pill was very fierce. After swallowing it, the injuries on Murongyu's body were quickly healed. His strength was also rapidly increasing. However, Murongyu originally did not consume much energy, but the power of these pills made him feel like he had eaten too much. Murongyu, don't you have other combat skills? Why not use it? Don't hold back later. Yuan Jun doesn't want to kill you, but Li Diyu will definitely try to kill you. If you don't use your full strength, you won't be able to escape from Li Diyu's evil hands. While Murongyu was healing, Feng Ziwen's voice sounded in Murongyu's ears. Murongyu opened his eyes and looked at Feng Ziwen with surprise. I'm just a false saint. What other combat skills could I have? Fong Ziwen rolled her eyes and almost blurted out, "Didn't your soul become a saint?" However, she didn't say it out loud. Instead, she glared at Murongyu and said with a murderous look, "Don't try to trick me. I don't believe that you don't have other combat skills. Moreover, if you only relied on your previous skills, how could you have killed the purple sky raccoon? I say, young Miss Fong, are you mistaken? You clearly killed the purple sky raccoon with a single arrow. What does that have to do with me?" Murongyu had an innocent expression. He would never admit that his soul had become a saint. Otherwise, once he was exposed, he would immediately become a hot commodity. When that time came, he would be captured by those super experts and studied. Since that's the case, don't blame me when you die. Fong Ziwen said fiercely and angrily turned to leave. Don't worry, I'll definitely defeat Li Diyu. As she left, Murongyu's confident voice sounded in her ears. Fong Ziwen was delighted. Could it be that he's preparing to use a soul attack? As a result, her anger disappeared. She walked back the way she came with a face full of smiles. After Fong Ziwen left, Murongyu stood up from the ground and looked at Li Diyu. Li Diyu, come out and give me your treasures. Fong Ziwen's pills weren't ordinary pills. This little bit of time was enough for him to recover to his peak state. Li Diyu laughed nastily, and his body flickered as he turned into a streak of light and charged towards Murongyu. I wonder how Murongyu will fight. Is he going to fight Li Diyu? Li Diyu isn't Yuan Zhen. If he continues like this, he'll definitely die. Everyone's eyes were focused on Murongyu. They all felt Li Diyu's killing intent towards Murongyu. Under their gazes, Murongyu still stood in place without moving. At that moment, Li Diyu was already not far in front of him. Little bastard, prepare to die. Li Diyu laughed nastily and shouted. His invincible divine fist fiercely smashed towards Murongyu's head. He wanted to kill Murongyu with one punch. However, Murongyu still didn't move, as if he was scared silly. What's going on? Has Murongyu really been scared out of his wits? Doubt filled everyone's hearts. Each and every one of them stared at Murongyu without blinking. Li Diyu's attack had already arrived in front of Murongyu as a gust of wind blew against his face. Li Diyu's fist would be able to smash Murongyu's head in the blink of an eye. Judging from the terrifying aura, Murongyu's head was very likely to be blown apart. You're no match for me. At that moment, Murongyu suddenly roared. Hearing Murongyu's words, everyone couldn't help but stagger. Why was he still talking nonsense at a time like this? However, in the next moment, they understood why Murongyu had said that and why he hadn't made a move yet. As Murongyu spoke, the high-grade Saint artifact Bone Dragon Flaming Needle that he'd won from Yuan Zhen soared into the sky. It expanded with the wind and instantly became a pillar that supported the heavens. Streaks of flames were like sacred flames descending from the heavens. They surged towards Li Diyu like raging waves, drowning him. He had brought out the Bone Dragon Flaming Needle. The moment the Bone Dragon Flaming Needle was brought out, everyone present felt as if their souls were being pierced by millions of needles. For a moment, countless people's miserable cries rose and fell, spreading far and wide. At the same time, they quickly retreated. If the onlookers were already in such a state, what more Li Diyu? Li Diyu felt as if his soul was being torn apart. He was in incomparable pain. At that moment, his vision even darkened. There was only one feeling in his entire body, pain. It was a tearing pain. Li Diyu knew that things were not good. He knew that Murongyu had activated the Bone Dragon Flaming Needle's soul-attacking ability. He wanted to counterattack, but the pain in his soul made him lose his sense of direction. He couldn't help but panic. Just as Li Diyu was panicking, Murongyu's roar rang in his ears. I already said that you're no match for me. At the same time, Li Diyu felt as if his body was being crushed by a sacred mountain. He felt as if his body was about to shatter. Although Li Diyu didn't know what was going on, he knew that Murongyu had closed in on him and killed him. Li Diyu was instantly dumbfounded. Meanwhile, the onlookers in the distance clearly saw Murongyu pick up the Bone Dragon Flaming Needle and bombard Li Diyu's body with it. In less than a few breaths' time, Li Diyu's body was smashed into a bloody mess. During this process, Li Diyu didn't even have the strength to counterattack. A soul-attacking ability is actually so terrifying. The power of the Dragonbone Flaming Needle is actually this terrifying. Everyone stared at the scene before them in shock. Even Yuan Zhen was dumbfounded. He didn't realize that the Bone Dragon Flaming Needle was actually so powerful. That was because he had never used it against an enemy before. However, the more powerful the Bone Dragon Flaming Needle was, the more displeased he was. That was because he had already given the sacred artifact away. Bang! 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 Murong Yu picked up the Bone Dragon Flaming Needle and used it as an iron rod to bombard Li Diyu's body. Li Diyu was smashed to the ground and smashed into a pile of mush. Are you going to admit defeat or not? Murong Yu didn't hit Li Diyu with his rod. He just asked this question. However, before Li Diyu could reply, he hit Li Diyu again. As a result, Li Diyu's body was smashed into a pile of mush by Murong Yu's rod before he could recover. In the end, as Murong Yu's rod continued to smash Li Diyu's body, Li Diyu's strength gradually weakened. Once his strength was completely exhausted, he would definitely die. Li Diyu's soul was still like a needle piercing into his body. He couldn't effectively react. Thinking that he might be killed, Li Diyu was terrified. He opened his mouth and wanted to admit defeat. However, as soon as he spoke, Murong Yu's rod smashed into his head. Then, Li Diyu's head exploded with a bang. F*CKU. Li Diyu cursed in his heart. His killing intent was overflowing. However, he quickly reformed his head. However, as soon as his head reformed, Murong Yu's rod came down again. Isn't this guy too ruthless? He wants Li Diyu to admit defeat, but he doesn't even have a chance to speak. Seeing Murong Yu's rod strike after strike, the onlookers felt a chill run down their spines. If you don't have the ability to kill him, then you definitely can't provoke him. The onlookers discussed animatedly. They were frightened by Murong Yu's ferocity. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.